Hey, Pat Project family, shut your fucking mouth. No, not really, but kinda. You should keep your mouth shut when you're asleep. Now, on the podcast, we've been talking about the importance of nasal breathing for years, and we've been talking about using mouth tape during your sleep for years, as it's going to help your sleep quality because you're going to be breathing through your nose. We had James Nestor, author of Why We Sleep. Actually, that was Matthew Walker, but James Nestor, author of Breathe. We had Patrick McEwen. We've had so many people talk about the importance of taping your mouth and breathing through your nose when you sleep for your sleep quality, which helps your recovery, which helps every aspect of your health and fitness. So, hostage tape. If you want to get some of this to help you sleep better, and it also stays on your face if you're a bearded man, which is one of the big problems with mouth tape, head to hostagetape.com/power project. And there you can actually get the Power Project annual deal, which will give you a year's supply of hostage tape. 55 cents a day for tape pretty much. And you'll be able to save $150 along with getting 2 tins, a year's supply of tape, and a blindfold. That is going to be something that you want to get your hands on. Links in the description, along with the podcast show notes. Shut your f***ing mouth.
He's like, I was just having good fun.
Dude, I think Jason Khalipa could make some really good money with his feet because first off, it's the feet of a CrossFit Games champion, and the feet are very unique. And it turns out they're so flat that could be something that turns a lot of foot guys on.
His feet, yeah. His feet kind of remind me of like Fred Flintstone, like the Flintstone vehicle. You gotta move your feet in the car, you know.
Oh God,
that got you pretty good, huh?
This is fucking monster.
You'll be fine.
Damn. Oh man.
Yeah. So just make sure you guys stay close to the microphone when you speak, and then we'll be good to go. Okay. Yeah.
Let's let me just do a fucking demo with this thing.
There we
because
go.
Apparently, I guess I don't know what I'm doing too. But you guys have had some customers not know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about some hostage tape here today. And this is mouth tape. And when you sleep with your mouth shut and you breathe in and out of your nose, you're going to notice some great results from it. Don't just take it from me. Give this thing a try one day and you'll see for yourself. But to apply this, you just crack it open. You got to kind of pull on it. You give it a little tug here and it rips in the middle. And then you want to kind of fold it outward because the tape on here is super sticky. So those of you that have facial hair, people that are worried and concerned that it's going to fall off, this stuff, it may fall off, but it should not fall off. It should stay on pretty securely. So you just kind of open it like that. You getting a shot of that, Andrew? Mm-hmm. And then you just stick your face in there and you go like,
yeah, as you would like like the proper way to put on a Band-Aid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mark, what was that? I can't. Oh, got it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, one thing I'll mention too that a lot of people don't know is, so when you put it on, you actually, if you rub it, right, it activates the glue to help it stick. So if you feel like, especially when you've got a lot of facial hair, rubbing it activates the glue, helps it stick better.
So rubbing it makes it a little bit stickier.
It does.
What about we tend to
That's
use
what
a lot
she
of
said.
Vaseline around our mouth. So what about us? How do we do it?
Well, that's on too. So a lot of our users that if they feel like it is too sticky, they'll use Vaseline or they might use some chapstick or even beard oil.
And we all know you motherfuckers have Vaseline right there. So don't act like you don't
next to
have
the
it.
bed.
That's right.
How'd that get there?
Motherfucker.
Big old thing dug out of the middle of the Vaseline.
One thing that's super impressive though is like, this is the 3M micropore tape that I've always continued to use. I've used this for years. And the main reason I've used 3M micropore tape is because it was super cheap, right? But the problem with this tape whenever I'd sleep with it is you could put one
applied right in the middle.
but it doesn't stick. So you usually have to do one.
And your
right
mouth
above
is
that.
still kind of openish. So you got to use
And
three.
That's insane.
And I have pictures where that's what I had to use to tape my mouth shut. And sometimes it would still come off. But with this, even when bearded, and the cool thing is you guys have a lot of reviews from bearded guys,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Bearded, it sticks and it doesn't come off.
Right.
Andrew, and you have an incident where you woke up and your tape was on your wife's ass.
Yeah, it was. And everyone,
It wasn't an accident.
everyone but
I think it's
me
great.
was confused. Yeah, no, I was not. No, and then, so the other thing about the micropore tape, it was funny because somebody had mentioned this in our Discord, that like in the morning it's like extra sticky just on the lips, so like it's falling off on the sides. But there's been times where I ripped it off, like kind of in a rush, and like a piece of my lip is still stuck on the tape. So
Right.
I don't know, like a nighttime of using that tape has been really, really sticky, but in the wrong spots. And
Yeah.
so now using hostage tape, I don't have that. And then I would get here sometimes, and I promise it was the residue from the micropore tape.
It looks like nut. It looks like nut.
I don't know if it looks like nut, but
It looks like nut.
Yeah, I think before we move forward, I just want to say that neither one of you guys are using performance-enhancing drugs. This is all a byproduct of the hostage tape, right?
I am completely natty. Completely natty.
People aren't going to buy it anyway, so I figured we'd just get it out of the way.
That's true.
I think what we got to
grill
do
you.
is what you just did there. Every single person we have on the podcast just got to ask that question.
We got to start out with that.
You're
Just
gonna
start
have
out
to.
with it,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Swear on a Bible.
How did this come to be? Because taping your mouth shut seems wacky and weird when you first hear about it.
I tell you, it sounds fucking crazy. It absolutely does. And it was one of those things where I think it was about like 3-4 years ago. I went through a divorce, and I couldn't sleep, right? And obviously through that divorce, my wife, she slept in a separate bedroom. And so it just really kind of ruined the intimacy. And I was a snorer, and I didn't really know that there was a problem. I didn't understand that snoring is bad. It shouldn't be happening. And I didn't really think about it too much until we had gotten divorced, separated. Then I started to evaluate, all right, there's got to be something to this. How can I actually improve this?
Also, one thing is most people joke about snoring.
Yeah.
When it
totally.
comes to snoring, it's so normal. And we were just talking about this
Right.
off air. It's so normal in today's culture that
Yeah.
when people are like, oh, yeah, I snore, my wife gets at me for snoring, it's like, ha ha, you're snoring, but
Right.
that's fucking your sleep up, dog.
Yeah, totally. Like it's normalized. We think it's normal. We don't
And
really think
someone's
much of it.
Elbowing you and making fun of you, or if you're in a hotel room with somebody else, they keep throwing pillows on you, and
Right.
it can be a mess. And it's literally just a medical issue. You're not trying to snore,
Right.
You're just in a rough position, and your body for some reason is forcing you to sleep with your mouth open.
And you're unconscious, so you don't really have control over it. So when
100%.
your partner gets upset at you or
Right.
whatever, you're just like, sorry? Like,
I
mean, what
didn't
can you
even
do?
know I was doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. And then they're getting resentful and pissed off at you, and they want to kill you, and then you end up sleeping in separate bedrooms, and you don't really know what to do. But I remember I started out with trying to get a mouth guard. I think most people who try to start out trying to fix it, they start with a mouth guard or some sort of apparatus, like dental apparatus.
You got it off of Amazon, something like that?
Yeah, I
or-
just bought it off
okay.
Amazon, and oh my God, it was fucking awful. It was the worst. And it keeps your mouth open. I couldn't keep the mouth shut, so you're drooling all over the place. They hurt like hell. It didn't work, right? So then I came across an article that I think was a James Nestor article, and when I read about how he had went in and they did this experiment where he plugged his nose up, and the fact that he developed snoring, sleep apnea from that, and then when they pulled it out, he mouth taped and only nose breathed. That was when a light bulb went off for me, and I went, holy shit, how am I 35, 36 years old at this time? And I've been an athlete my entire life, and I'd never heard of nasal breathing and this idea of keeping my mouth shut. So I went online and I bought some, I think, my cheap micropore tape. I think is what I did.
Yeah.
And I bought it, and I put it on, and I didn't know how much to put on. It was literally like what you just did, right? You put this huge fucking strip on, and
Because
you
it has
don't
to stay on.
right. You don't know how much to put on. So you kind of just, you put it on, you do your thing. You're like, all right, I guess this is going to be it. I went to sleep and I woke up. I felt like a teenager. I could not believe how amazing I felt. And it was at that moment that I knew, all right, we're on to something, right? We're on to something. I just didn't know. And that was a few years ago where, we'd started the company this year, but I knew that, all right, there's something here with mouth taping, and that we could take this and actually help just get more people inspired to be able to mouth tape and realize that it's not crazy.
Let's
This
make
is
it
not
normal.
crazy, right? Let's make it normal and like actually create a brand that inspires people to do it, gets them interested in it, and isn't so maybe medical, right? But a little bit more fun and has people have a fun buying experience when they get it. So, totally.
Yeah, I mean, I've been using it on runs and all kinds of stuff. And, you think when you're running, you're like, oh, well, I can probably I don't really need the tape. I don't need the embarrassment of like
Right.
running around with tape looking like a psychopath. But I think you do need the embarrassment of it because you're going to find yourself kind of cheating here and there. And And you'd be like, well,
Totally.
I can kind of
Just one breath, just two breaths.
Yeah, and you're gonna do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's a safe way to do things. But when you're forcing it and you're forcing some oxygen debt, I think is where you get the real benefits. And I know Nsima doesn't use tape while he's doing jujitsu, but he's been swearing by nasal breathing for a long time.
Yeah.
He keeps coming in all fired up, telling Andrew and I about his own experience with it through jujitsu and how it's helping him improve his stamina and stuff like that. And same thing with Josh Setledge and some other people that you shared it with that are actually doing it, are noticing huge benefits, right?
Yeah, no, like we first heard about all this nasal breathing stuff in 17. I think 17 is when we had Patrick McEwen on the podcast.
I think Ron Penna too, when we had a conversation with him,
Oh,
he
yeah.
was like,
Oh, yeah.
we were all in
Yeah.
conversation with him one day, and he's like, let me ask you, he's got these really weird ways of wording things. He's the guy that started Quest Nutrition and now Legendary
Right.
brand. And he was like, would you pick up a hypodermic needle from the sidewalk and stick it in your arm? You're like, no. He's like, well, then why in the fuck would you sleep without taping your mouth shut? We're like, what?
How do you make that leap? But
Yeah, we're like,
apples to oranges,
we're
bro.
like,
What the fuck?
okay, it sounds like it's pretty important, I guess.
It's like when he was talking about flexibility. He's like, you think you're flexible? You're like, no. It's like, if I shot you in the head, you would be. Like, that's what Ron does.
If I blew your brains out right now, you'd be plenty flexible. You're
0
like,
to 100. Right.
okay, do you have a gun right now?
just a mental weakness is really your.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, true.
So it's like we did that episode with Patrick, and if you guys should check it out, because that's when we first discovered how important nasal breathing was. We had James and Tester on I think like a year later or something. But after we started taping our mouth shut when we were sleeping, I noticed immediately, first off, my sleep quality was better.
Yeah.
But also from his book, that's when I started trying to focus on specifically during jujitsu to keep my mouth shut the whole time. And initially it was super hard, but over time, as I got used to breathing through my nose, I found out that I was calmer. And I was calmer because when you're breathing through your mouth, it's like you're activating your sympathetic nervous system. It's your fight or flight. You feel more,
Right.
you don't feel as in control. And especially in jujitsu, when there's a man that now has you mounted and you're trying to escape, and then because you're panicking, you're breathing through your mouth, and then you become more panicky, it's not good. So first off, it massively changed my performance on the mats. But then if you think about that, your performance is better because you're breathing through your nose. Why would it make sense that when you're asleep, you're breathing through your mouth, like you're snoring? How is that good? Sleep is when you're supposed to have the best recovery. So if you're gonna have the best recovery, shouldn't your breathing be optimal?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's so good because it falls in line with everything we do. Sleep is the biggest place where you can recover. So taping your mouth shut when you sleep, if you're able to, will give you the most recovery possible.
Yeah, the power of the breath for me, I think, started probably about 4.5 years ago with Wim Hof. I think sort of introduced me to this idea of just how powerful the breath could be and what it could bring and introduce into our bodies. You know, I remember doing his breathing exercises for like 2 or 3 times in a row, and he talks about releasing DMT in the brain, through this process, and it was sort of amazing and eye-opening, and then from there it went to cold hacking. And then from there it was started doing all of this other, this biohacking trend, and then I got into health and wellness space. And you start to see people talk about things and looking at snoring and, breathing problems as an actual thing we need to fix and not just being normalized and not just being a joke, And for me, that was sort of really powerful thing that kind of set me on this journey.
Yeah, it gets you into like a rabbit hole because then when you are listening to some of the authorities in this space, they're like, well, they believe it all stems from kind of soft foods, maybe not having to chew our foods as much as we used to, and processed foods and things like that. And so over periods of time, affecting the jaw, like the strength of the jaw, and then affecting the airway.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. I heard Nestor talk about that when he talks about how when you look at humans, right, in this modern age of how all of our teeth have just gone to shit over the last how many hundreds of years. But before that, they weren't. If you go back and you look at old skulls of people, that whole talk that he gives, it's mind-blowing to understand what we're actually doing to our teeth, to our bodies, with mouth breathing and all of that. It's fascinating.
There's an amazing book on that, by the way, guys. Whether you get it on audio or you buy the book, it's called Jaws. I forgot the authors, but Jaws. It's an amazing book where they pretty much go over how, like, a lot of the dental industry too, most people get their wisdom teeth pulled, but you're supposed to have enough space in your mouth for your wisdoms. But in Western culture, because of the food we eat and the facial structures aren't being developed to where they could be, a lot of people are having impacted mouthways and they have to get their teeth pulled. You know what I mean? So that's a good book that explains the whole topic. But again, like all of that ends up falling in line. And it's especially important within our industry, like the fitness industry, and a lot of guys in the audience who are bigger, who have bigger necks, who, you know, a lot of guys end up getting sleep apnea or having breathing problems during their sleep because of their big ass necks, right? So if you could improve your breathing during your day, and I think a lot of this can start with the way you're working out in the gym, the way you're going out through your day. If you can just start trying to focus on nasal breathing, that can itself make nasal breathing during sleep a lot easier.
I think the hostage tape too, having your mouth taped shut at night, I think helps to teach it to you and for you to keep your mouth shut. So I've had nights where sometimes I forget to put it on, or maybe too lazy, or just feel like I don't want to put it on for whatever reason. And I feel like my mouth has stayed shut. Now I don't really know, so I'd rather be more secure and just do the thing and tape the mouth shut. But I think it really does help, and I think it's a way to kind of train you into that.
Yeah, definitely. I know what I noticed too, because I'll do that sometimes too, where I might forget, and my wife will be like, "Honey, you're gonna put your tape on, like you're snoring." But there'll be times where it might stay shut, but then after maybe a day or so, if I don't do it, mine definitely falls open. So I've always got to put it on. I'm resigned to the fact that I'm always going to be a mouth breather, no matter how healthy I am. So I'm always just going to have to put tape on for sure.
I have noticed though, like when I first started using mouth tape years ago, this is actually a cool thing that anybody in the audience can do, because I think sometimes it's necessary for people to test things out so they can understand the difference.
Yeah.
There'd be nights that I would remember to use it, and I'd wake up in the morning, and because we have the 8 sleep, which tracks our sleep, and also use the Oura Ring, like you could see the difference in terms of your quality of sleep. But then the nights that I'd forget to use it, first off, when I would wake up, I would feel the difference, because I'd wake up with a dry mouth because my mouth was open, right? But I wouldn't feel as rested as the night that I actually used mouth tape, right? So I think it's cool if any of you guys want to test this on yourself, just grab some tape, sleep, you'll probably have great sleep, do that for a few days, and then sleep a night without taping. See how you feel in the morning, because you'll notice the difference, and you can even track the difference in terms of your sleep quality.
Yeah, the amount of people that we have who are giving reviews where they've got a Whoop band or they've got an Oura Ring or something that's tracking themselves, and they're showing us the results of, wow, this is how much better I slept.
Yeah.
And this is data that's showing, wow, I slept so much better because of hostage tape and taping my mouth shut.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. How did you guys figure out, how to keep that shit on? Because again, this would always end up, sometimes it'd stay on my mouth all night, which was nice when it happened, but sometimes it'd always come up, which is why I'd use 3 strips.
Right.
But it's really awesome that we all have facial hair. Andrew especially, he has massive amounts of facial hair, but this shit doesn't come off at all. So how'd you guys figure that out? Because that's dope.
Tell them the story about...
So, like Alex, I went on Amazon. I had some snoring issues. It was creating problems in my relationship where, my partner would kind of nudge me and be like, "You're snoring, honey. Can you go sleep on the couch or whatever?" And, there's those kind of things. And so I went through 3 or 4 different contraptions, one where you put the neoprene sock thing around you and you Velcro it all up and, try to do that. Yeah. I did this other one where you, it's this plastic thing you put in your mouth and you stick your tongue through this thing and it holds your tongue and you're sleeping like this, and I'm like,
but your mouth is open?
Yeah, your mouth is literally open, and your tongue is sticking through this.
Do you know the names of anything saying? So maybe Andrew can look some of them up.
It's sort of like I don't. If you look on Amazon, say like tongue snoring thing, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it.
I guess and I won't know the name, but I do know of one.
Yeah, it was a horrible contraption, and then once I actually learned about mouth taping, I went on there and bought some of the cheaper products on there, and I would wake up and I even sent Alex, and it would tape my nose or up here or my eye down, and I was like, that's how I woke up the next day, and I'm like, I don't think this is working, you know. And so I think for us, one of the things when Alex and I first started talking about it, I was like, it's got to be flexible because we move. Right. Yeah. We're going to move, right. In the night. And I thought that was something that I didn't see anyone else having. And so that was something we really wanted to have. And then Alex really worked on the glue formula to make sure that.
I've done that. That's the one I bought right there.
Yeah.
I bought that one and tried it, and it was oh my God, it hurt
Is
so
it supposed
much.
to kind of click the tongue upward or
No,
something?
No, it's
or-
supposed
That's supposed to push the bottom of your jaw forward, right, to help. You know?
Yeah.
And all that thing did for me was it kept my mouth open, and it made me a fucking drool monster.
Yeah, the lower
all
jaw
over the
being
pillow.
forward is supposed to help open up the airway a little bit.
Right.
But unfortunately, I don't think you can just buy any old random mouthpiece. I think you would have to go to like an orthodontist, which I had.
Yeah.
I had a special mouthpiece like kind of made for me, and that actually was pretty helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But I still need tape over top of it because.
Yeah.
And then you just end up with this fucking giant thing in your mouth, and your mouth is taped, and it's
Right.
pretty uncomfortable. So I just continued. I don't
Yeah.
think I need it anymore.
Yeah, so to what Nsima was asking, so really it all came down to like, look, if you're covering your mouth, the mouth is this like sacred place where when you cover it, people have a primal reaction to want to remove it. So we knew that it has to be really comfortable. It has to be the most comfortable mouth tape that you put on your face that you almost forget it's there, right? And so that's why the flexible fabric that we ended up going with was such a key there. Was it's so comfortable, so easy and nice that, yeah, you forget it's there. And then secondly was the glue. I spent probably 5 months perfecting the right glue because it would either be way too fucking strong where you're like, oh my God.
And then you're bleeding.
Or it wasn't strong enough.
Yeah.
And then it was maybe kind of falling off. So it was trying to find that balance of just a ton of testing and then making sure we had the right stuff. And then when we finally found the right mix, we were like, I think we found it. I think we got it. And then we started sending it out to people. And you were actually one of the early group of people. You weren't the first. There was another group of guys that I sent it to first. And they were like, yeah, this is really cool. They didn't really have an issue with mouth breathing, but they thought it was really cool. And then I sent it to you and then got a response from you.
Now we got Tom Segura ordering some up.
Got Tom Segura. Tom is ordering it. Absolutely.
That's pretty cool to see his
awesome.
name in the actual like ordering box.
I know. Like we were sitting last night, we were sitting at the bar, we were just eating some food and it popped up and I went, dude.
My dad still goes on our website and orders stuff all the time. Like, dude, there's like no reason. This is my uncle, a bunch of my family members. It was great. It's great, but I'm always like, come on.
Dad,
like,
I feel like
let me just send you some stuff.
I feel like Tom, if you would have just messaged me, I would have sent you some because it's Tom Segura.
yeah, like you kind of know who he is, right?
So Joe Rogan, when you want some, just message me. I'll send it
That's all you do. Slide into the DMs. You got some free tape.
That's right.
You know, if anyone wants to go down the rabbit hole, because I don't know if you did this too, but after we learned about first off the nasal breathing at night or whatever, we started. Have you ever heard of Mike Mew? And mewing.
mewing.
Yes.
Mewing.
That's a thing. I believe it.
Actually,
I
totally.
do too.
Yes, the Jaws book that you're talking about
Yeah.
was written by students of him.
Of Mike.
Yes.
So
So there is a connection there as well.
go down the YouTube rabbit hole of mewing and mewing transformations
Yes.
because you're gonna see all these homie bros, honestly. And bros
Like,
know
look
what's
at my
going
jaw.
on, dog. Yes, it's like fucking jawlines, but also mastic gum.
Yeah.
I bought so many packs of mastic gum, and I'll just be working on my computer, just chomping on this hard ass gum.
I got to bring that other gum in for you too. I have another gum that's like some like tree bark type shit, and it's like if at first it's like chewing on crystals,
Yes.
and they're all like
Oh,
apart,
yeah.
and then it kind of like comes together, and then it's weird. It'll get like pretty soft, but some people are like throw it in some ice water and then try to chew it again, and it's like it's a lot of training for your jaw basically.
Yeah, totally.
Funny
No,
story, if you take about 10 hostage strips and bend them in half, start chewing on those, just as effective.
Got to chew
Just
right
as
through that
effective.
gum.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, so there are some things I think that would be wise though for people to do, for people that are struggling with their sleep. Obviously, using the tape is super easy to do, and I'm encouraged to do it every night because it's simple enough. You know, I did mention every once in a while I won't tape, but for the most part, I'll do it and it stays on. I don't have any problem with it. I don't have to really mess around with it. And then you showed me the other way of putting it on. That was really helpful because it's so sticky. It would like stick to each finger, and I was trying to get it off one finger and trying to get it on the other one. And then when I'm trying to put it on to run, sometimes I'm not smart enough to stop running. So I'm trying to like do it while I'm running, and it will kind of stick everywhere. But I do think there's some other things that people can do. to help enhance their sleep. And I think it's a good idea just to push your cardiovascular a little bit. So you can do that through lifting weights, and you can do that through many, many different means. But I think people should get their heart rate up a little bit, get the heart rate above 120 and see if you can kind of like ride that out, or above 110, whatever feels appropriate for you. And see if you can kind of keep that elevated for a couple of minutes at a time. Maybe at first, maybe you're only able to do that for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. Maybe you can start to incorporate some nasal breathing into your training and just have appropriate rest in between sets that kind of only allows you to nasal breathe during some of your training. And we've talked about it here on the show. We actually feel like that would be a pretty safe way for you to train. It would keep the weights in line. It would keep your sets and reps in line, where you wouldn't be like redlining. You know, a lot of times when we're
governor.
Yeah, a lot of times we're training like we're just going so hard. So finding ways to get yourself to breathe hard during the day, I think would be a really excellent way to help you to have the kind of reverse of that when you sleep, and that's to really just calm the hell down.
But I also want to add in too there, like, this is something that takes time. Because like when I started nasal breathing with jiu-jitsu, it didn't feel good. Like,
Feels horrible.
It feels horrible. It feels
Really,
like
really difficult. I feel like you're going to pass out at times.
it doesn't feel like you can get the amount of air that you typically would if you're going like that, right? So it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. But like you're saying, if you can push your nasal breathing capacity during the exercises you do, and this can be some low intensity cardio, this could be you doing a little bit of kettlebell work.
Maybe it's just a walk.
Could you, I mean, during a walk, hopefully you're not breathing through your mouth during
Yeah,
a
hopefully
walk.
it's not hard for you. But
but
if it is,
I don't think most people realize that, though. I think people are still walking and running, and they're breathing through their mouth, and they don't realize that, oh, shit, I should keep it shut and do my nose.
I think part of the challenge too is it's a quantity over quality thing. You know, because one of the things that Nestor talks about is just because you think you're getting more volume of air into your lungs, you actually get more oxygenation of your blood by breathing through your nose, because of the capillary actions create this nitric oxide reaction that allows the blood to take up the oxygen much more effectively than it does through
even though that might feel better.
Exactly. It might feel better, but it's a quantity over quality thing.
Absolutely. And this is also one thing that Patrick mentioned. Patrick mentioned that, like, even as he started trying to breathe more through his nose, it took time for that to feel good. It's like if you're someone who perpetually or breathes a lot through your mouth, when you start focusing on breathing through your nose, there's little muscles in here too that probably don't get that much action. So they will develop over time, and it'll be much easier to do that. That's why I just want people to understand that this isn't some, like, for some people, it's going to be, ooh, this feels great. But for some people, breathing through your nose when you're sleeping or when you're doing a lot of other things may very well be quite uncomfortable. My sister's quite overweight. And right now for her, like, I'll see her over at my mom's house, and when she's walking around, her mouth's like this. She doesn't even realize she's breathing through her mouth. And I have to continuously remind her, hey, you know, shut your mouth, right? And if you're someone who's not, like, maybe you're not thinking about it, or it's not something that's been at top of mind, you could be working at your computer. And I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I'm remembering when I was like 24 or 23, when I was with one of my exes, I was wearing some Beats headphones, and I was at the computer, and she's like, why are you breathing so loud? And I'm pretty sure my mouth was slightly open when I was doing some work on my computer. So these are things you sometimes don't think about and don't even realize you're doing. But if you can become more cognizant during your day to just try to keep it here, that'll make it easier at night.
And it's also interesting too, because I think a lot of people, you know, you're right, it might not be comfortable, but it's important to push yourself through those comfort zones. I mean, you know it through training, you know it through, you know, any sort of progress that you ever try to make. If all we do is stay in the thing that we're used to, or the things that we're comfortable with, then it's really hard for us to get better or grow or to progress, you know. And so I think that that's an important component.
And it's trying it too, right? This is something that's non-invasive, it's inexpensive, and it's something that everybody can try it. It's not as dangerous as people think. Like the people that, it's amazing. Like we all see the comments of people who are like, they think this is so dangerous.
I have allergies.
Right. And like
You're gonna kill people.
And they're not going to wake up. Like, well, what if you have a stuffy nose and you just don't wake up? Like, you're going to wake up, right? But it's something that's non-invasive, that's easily something you can try just to see how it goes, right? And you preach it all the time about just being able to try things.
Right. It is important to note that this is not a cure for sleep apnea.
No, absolutely.
Right. This
absolutely.
is just might help people with some minor snoring.
And it works great with a CPAP. So for people who wear a CPAP, one of the biggest challenges that they have is depending upon the mask that they're using, their mouth might be falling open. So then the air is being blown in and back out their mouth.
I see. Sometimes they have the
Right.
CPAP that goes through the nose, right?
Right. So then it's not working very well. So they might be wearing a chin strap that they don't like, or maybe they're not wearing one at all. So then wearing hostage tape, we've got a ton of reviews of people who they've completely changed how well their CPAP works for them, because now they've got hostage tape on. It feels really comfortable. They don't have a bunch of extra straps, and it's allowing that CPAP machine to work really well and help them feel better.
I've noticed over the years, waking up from being in bed for 7 or 8 hours and feeling like I had hardly any sleep. Like I could kind of feel it in my legs. Being someone that trains for a long time, or been training for a long time, and being someone that's connected to my body, I would feel like my legs were like fatigued without like leg training necessarily. And I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And so over a period of time, through losing weight, through I believe I don't have sleep apnea anymore, wearing mouth tape, running. There's been a series of things that are involved in this kind of process of me getting to a better spot. But when I wake up with mouth tape on, I don't have that feeling anymore. Right. I feel fresh. I feel good. I feel ready to go. I feel like I slept.
Right.
Whereas before, I literally, I don't know what happened in my body or when or how or why, but I somehow adapted to it. Like I tell people all the time, I think I only would sleep like 3 to 5 hours. And I think people think it's an exaggeration, but even when I did track it and stuff, that's what it would show. It's like you slept for about 3.5 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
And over a period of time, I got so used to it that when I would start to try to sleep longer, the longer length of sleep didn't make me feel any better. It actually almost made me feel worse because I would feel groggy. So I had to get myself in better shape. I had to get myself a lot healthier.
Right.
And then utilizing techniques like this, focusing on nasal breathing has been massive for me.
You make a really good point. I mean, James Clear in his Atomic Habits book, really hits to that point, right? Get 1% better every day, right? And I'm a big believer that there's no magic bullet that's going to solve all of your problems. But if you can do
Mind bullet.
Oh yeah, he tried some. That's why he's getting all fired up.
I haven't tried it yet.
There's no magic bullet that's going to do any one thing. But if you can do 10 or 20 things that each give you a 5 to 10% improvement over time, then that's 100% gain. And I think that that's a really big thing that people should, push their comfort zone, try things, try a multitude of things. Like you said, working out, maybe getting, having better sleep habits at night, having tools like mouth taping and things like that can really transform, I think.
Here's an interesting thing I'd like to mention, along with my legs feeling like fatigued. I noticed that while doing I think it's the Bohr score, right? Is that what it's called?
The Bolt.
Bolt score. Okay, the Bolt score. I practice some of this while I'm walking sometimes, and I'll occasionally just take a breath out, not like a deep breath out or anything, just a casual breath out, and I'll try to walk as many steps as I can. While I'm doing this, and when I push this a little bit, the first thing I kind of feel is my legs. And I'm like, that's what my body was fucking experiencing while I was sleeping. And this is me like holding my breath as I'm, walking for however many seconds or steps I'm able to do.
And quick thing about the Bolt score, guys. If you YouTube Bolt score, all it is, it's a test that Patch McEwen has people do to see how well their breathing quality is. So you breathe in, you breathe out, and then you can either walk or you can sit there and just see how long you can hold your breath until you feel the need to breathe. I believe he wants people to be over 25 seconds, is 20 or 25 seconds. Just Google it. And if you're below that, you have a lot of work to do as far as your breathing's concerned.
Right. So it might give you an indication of your recovery for a particular day too. I know Phil DeRue is really big on kind of checking in on stuff like that.
Yeah. And for a lot of people who they're afraid of the mouth tape and they don't want to do it, or they're not used to it, or they're having trouble with it, a lot of people, what they'll do is, and we suggest, is wear it during the day. Like if you're at home sitting at your desk, put it on, just start to get used to it. So it starts to get your body used to it, because we do see a lot of people who they might try it for the first time and they'll wake up within a few hours. They're like, I can't do it. So try it throughout the day. Get your body used to it, and then you can start to ease yourself into it. And then once you do it for like a good 7-day period, for a lot of people, they're just blown away.
Challenge to do it at home while you're like bringing in groceries and like mopping the floor and shit like that.
Real talk. This reminds me. We've had a lot of like big guys on the podcast. It brings me back to an episode we had PH Deadlift and other individuals, right? Where they'd be at the mic, but then they're just like. And they don't know it's them. They're just like
snoring while they're away.
Right. And I'm just like, and what I purposely do is I back away from the mic so that when the listeners are listening or watching, they know it's not me. It's not because I'm like, that's not good. But what I'm saying here is I think that a lot of people, because there's no reason why guys like that who are in that good of shape should have to be breathing through their mouth while they're at rest. You know what I mean? So if you're chilling, if you're working on your computer or you're doing something where you're at rest, tape your mouth shut so you get used to breathing through your nose, because that's just an adaptation thing. Once you're then used to breathing through your nose, you don't have to keep your mouth taped shut when you're doing everything else, Yeah.
Right. Well, the other myth to what you're saying too is it's not just big people, right? Like I'm a good example of that, right? I'm a 175 pound, 6 foot guy.
Yeah.
I still have an issue with that, right? I snore like a banshee, but it's not because of my weight. And so you'll see a lot of people think, well, if you lose all the weight, then it'll cure your issue. Well, no, that's not true. Because if it was true, then why would I still be snoring? Right. So,
yeah, and one of the reasons that I read that bodybuilders and people like that do have the breathing problem is because think about it, right? They build weight, they build mass, right? They have an extra 15, 20 pounds on their chest, right? And then, like you said, the thicker neck and all of a sudden stuff, it restricts the space in there because they got so much more muscle mass.
Trying to get jacked.
Exactly, right? So it makes sense that, you're going to kind of fall into that if you're not conscious of it, and trying to make the different choice.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same, wavelength as you. It's like I'm a more slender person, but I still snore like a bear. Like it's crazy. Yeah. Why does that happen with guys like you and me?
Dude, that's a great question.
Manliness, I think.
I think so.
Of course.
We're just too manly.
It's our defense mechanism when we fall asleep. It's like, get away from me.
It keeps the bears at bay.
Really too much.
You do have a huge dick though, so maybe it has to do with that.
It's all that work with the Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you were saying how it took forever.
Yeah.
So I guess that would make sense.
Yeah,
more surface area.
Well, no, just because it takes a long time.
But no, this is again because we always talk about habits on the show. Like it's not just eating a different type of food. It's like a lot of habits that go through your day. And when you think about all the actions, like when I see guys lifting weights, there's an aspect of lifting weight with intensity, and you'll see like you'll see them doing fucking rows. They're like ha ha, and everything is just ha ha ha, mouth. And when you build those habits, it's hard to think that like when you do want to start sleeping soundly and you do want to breathe through your nose, it's not going to necessarily be the easiest thing to do when there are so many other things, little things within your day where you're just, that's your thing,
Right.
So
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, I know when I run every morning. I run about 3-4 miles every morning, and only recently, within the last 2 years, did I start to really focus on nasal breathing during a run. And every once in a while, I'll put the tape on and I'll do a run with the hostage tape on. And it's amazing how difficult it was first starting out. You can't believe that, oh, wow, I'm actually using my mouth to breathe a hell of a lot more than I think I am.
Again, I think this could be a really awesome way for somebody to introduce a little bit of running, like run with the tape on, and then when needed, walk. But seriously, walk, slow down, maybe even just rest on a tree or something, because it's gonna be really, really difficult. And I've actually been practicing it for a while, but it's very difficult for me to run with any sort of real speed with the mouth tape on for any period of time. So it's really nice because it forces me to slow way down.
I've had to figure out a certain pattern of how I breathe. I think you were talking about it a few months back.
That's a big thing because you can breathe a lot slower than you think.
You can. And what I started to notice is I had to start to do a cadence of how I would go. And I would do it with my steps, right?
Yeah.
And once I figured out the cadence of how I would breathe through my nose, it became a hell of a lot easier than when you're like, how do I do it? You just don't know and you can't find that rhythm.
Yeah.
So
A couple of years ago, I'd never been a runner. And a couple of years ago, I decided to cultivate the habit. So I was like, I am going to run every single day. And that's going to be like what I commit to. And then, it starts snowing and raining and all this stuff. And when I got into the winter
Where do you
months-
guys live?
I live in Portland. He lives
Minnesota.
in Minnesota. Yeah.
You guys are both in spots that have some crazy weather.
Yeah. But what I noticed is in the winter, especially when I was running, I would mouth breathe and I would get side cramps, because I'm breathing in all this cold air. It's making my throat just ache because the air is so cold, and I start getting side splints and
Just
stuff.
stay a little closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry about that. And so one of the things that I noticed is I started changing, and I taped the mouth and I started breathing through my nose, and it made all the difference. The side splints went away. I didn't have the burning in my throat anymore. And so, because there's like this natural warming element that happens when you go through your nose as opposed to letting the cold air directly hit. And so it made a big difference.
There is so much information on this. If you Google it and you look it up on YouTube and stuff, you can listen to James Nestor, Patrick McEwen. They both have books on it. They talk about it for hours.
Anders Olsen.
It also, who's that?
Anders Olsen.
Yeah, I
he
heard
does
that
it.
name.
Yeah, he's actually he did the study with Nestor in the.
I remember that.
he's out of Sweden, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a ton of great information, and we've heard this before. Like, this has been around for a while. I remember in boxing, it was a big thing in boxing. When you saw somebody start to breathe, it'd be the third or fourth round, and they would say, "Look at this guy; he's already breathed. He already has his mouth open." And it's a real danger in contact sports because if you get hit in the face or hit in the jaw with your mouth open, it's proposed that you could break your jaw that way, which is that's wild when you're getting tired and then getting smashed on at that point in a fight. But what an interesting intuition that they had so many years ago, and I think it dates back even way further than that. But that was my first time in hearing that, was like, this guy is defeated. He's clearly has his mouth open. I know Nsima has kind of said, like, this is really awesome when he's going against someone that he's working hard against and they're mouth breathing and he doesn't have to result to that.
I know Rogan's talked about that quite a bit, where once you notice a guy when you're doing, jujitsu, once you see him mouth breathing, you know he's done.
Yeah. So. Once you see that mouth fall open and he starts going like this and you're still breathing calmly, like, if you push the pace at that point in time, your opponent's done.
Yeah.
But you remember the podcast we just did with Mason Fowler?
Yeah.
And he mentioned this guy, Kenan Duarte. There are guys in jiu-jitsu at the black belt level where, like, I love that. I love the way Mason put it, because that's how you can tell that they're in control. Kenan Duarte, when he rolls with people, he just looks annoyed. He's nasal breathing.
Oh, that's what, yeah.
Yeah, he's nasal breathing the whole time, and his movement's good, but he's just like, just killing people. Same thing with this kid, Mika Galval. Roger Gracie, I've watched so many of his matches, but he's the greatest jiu-jitsu competitor of all time. And when you watch him roll with people, including the match that he did with the other GOAT, greatest of all time, he's won 13 world championships. He beat this guy Buchecha, but during the whole match, Roger's mouth was closed, and towards the end of the match, Buchecha's mouth opened.
Yeah.
It's like when you watch high-level athletes and their breathing and their just ability to breathe, usually you're not seeing them go like, no, they're in control. It's a big fucking deal.
That's cool. They just don't have to use that much energy reserve to kick your ass. It's like, that's disgusting, because you're like, I'm trying everything I can to win, but I'm still getting killed.
But I think that's I think that's
demoralizing.
It's demoralizing, but that's also quite inspiring, because you can train that capacity. Like,
You can get it too, yeah.
You can get it too. When I learned about it, I wasn't immediately just feeling, I was having to think about breathing through my nose. It wasn't something that I would just do. I was having to really think about it when doing activity. But if you just slowly train that, like we're talking about here, on walks, little run walks, increase your capacities while you're lifting, keep your mouth fucking shut, right? It will compound and it'll become easier.
Well, it's interesting because it's an entire organ on our face dedicated to breathing. Right. And, our mouth is dedicated to eating, and speaking. And, like, Eastern cultures have been talking about the importance of breathing forever, thousands of years, be it through meditation, be it through yogic breathing, things like that. And I feel like in the West, it always had this sort of like woo-woo connotations. And so it's really interesting to see it sort of coming and actually being brought, too more mainstream in the health and wellness space.
From an anecdotal perspective, have you guys seen or heard anyone talk about the facial structure changing? I would imagine it might take a really, really long time, but have either one of you guys noticed or heard anybody say, because I know on some of those runs when I'm just nasal breathing, like it takes all the muscles in my face, all around my eyes.
Yep.
The whole nasal passage has to be accepting of what you're doing.
I used to be a 2, and now I'm a solid 7. So, I mean, I've seen it personally. I've seen it personally.
You're slanging dick.
I know for me, I think it's definitely helped my jaw for sure, the older that I've gotten. But I just think it's amazing how, as an athlete myself, my entire life, I never knew about it. I had never heard about this. And granted, I was a football player, so
Our coaches didn't know.
Like, what the hell did we do? Or
Football, is he talking about using his feet?
You're talking about the real football, like
We're talking about
football, yes?
The black and
real
white ball?
football.
Yeah, the football. Like World Cup
We're gonna have
football.
that debate, right? I know.
Oh yeah, guys, he played American football, as all of you already knew. So yeah.
Speaking of which, a guy named Tom Brady, he's a famous quarterback. He's a guy that throws the ball for the offensive team.
The Hurricanes.
He's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Pretty close in Nsima.
And he had another comeback victory yesterday where they won in the final minutes of the game.
Played like shit for 3 quarters, and then
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tom Brady.
Love Tom. Love me some Tom.
Got it.
Love Tom.
You're talking about football, American football.
So yeah, I mean, as a football player though, like,
Yeah.
never heard about it. They didn't teach us that kind of
How
stuff.
great
We
is
just
the
didn't.
training for football?
It's got to be. I mean, it's only 6 seconds, right? 6 seconds in a cloud of dust, right? But we just didn't. They didn't teach us that stuff at all.
But just like the training from the time you're in high school, like the lifting and the running and as you get older and older, you're like, does any of this training make any sense that what we're doing?
Yeah, especially. I mean, a lot. It was a lot of Olympic lifting. Like we did a lot of cleans and squats and benches and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we didn't learn it. And then as I got older, right, I started to do yoga. And when I would do yoga and they would talk about how to breathe, I was like, whatever, I'm not doing that. Like, no way. I just didn't believe it. But now that I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't know why I didn't listen.
You got to calm yourself down.
Mind blowing.
Relax your left pinky toe.
That's right.
Right.
You're like, wait, what? How do I do that?
A big thing though is like kids, man. Like I wonder about this because with technology and with habits of what kids are doing at rest. I mean, what you notice, and I've seen this with one of my nephews, is like they'll be sitting down with something in their hand, but because they're here and they're kind of whatever, their mouth will pop open and there's no thinking of that. So you wonder with like how kids are developing now, and it's not much. I mean, there's a lot of differences from when we were children, but you don't want this type of issue to compound. If you can catch this with your kids early, like if you can just make sure they're sleeping with their mouth shut, they're chewing hard food and developing their face, and they're fucking doing some type of physical activity out there, they'll be better adults,
I do that with my kids. So I'll go in, I've got a 13 and 11-year-old, Rex and Harper. So I'll go into their beds at night and I'll just take a peek to see, are their mouths dropping open or not? Because I know that if their mouths are dropping open, that's a serious issue that, as we've seen James Nestor talk about, and even in that book Jaws, that if a young kid starts to develop that, then their whole face completely changes how they look as they get older.
CPS is going to be showing up at your place.
Right.
You're like, are you taping your children's mouths shut? What's going on in this place?
That'd be the worst look too. They go into your children's bedrooms and there's like,
You're like, no, but it helps.
What
with,
is going on?
Yeah, and you're like, no, it helps with all these things. Look at all the list of things I got that helps.
Dog, did I tell you how CPS came to my house when I was a kid?
What?
Did they really?
Okay, this is a quick side story. I'm African, so I was spanked. And I was not abused. I was spanked because I was a stupid fucking kid.
We were all spanked.
I like an African. Well, actually, maybe you were spanked like
I
me.
was.
Okay, good. Honestly. But my girl doesn't want me to spank our kids, so whatever. I don't think I'll
But
have
you're
to.
allowed to spank her.
Yeah.
That works out good. Even if she's not being bad.
Nah, she's actually not a fan of this. No, we don't do that. We don't do that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have other
Keep it
fucking-
clean.
Keep it kosher. Keep it kosher. But I came to school one day because my mom used a belt like any African parent does. Totally normal. And I had a little something on my leg, and the principal took me to the office, and they're like, is everything okay at home? I'm like, yeah. It's like, what's that on your leg? I'm like, I don't know. Because like I knew where this was going. So a few days later,
hey, that's good, man. Good looking out by the school.
It is a good looking out by the school. But my mom wasn't. My mom's she's such a good person. But she spanked her kid like any African parent does. I got to remind you guys about that. This is not white America. This is African. Africans spank their kids. In Africa, by the way, I got to remind people. Teachers spank the students to this day. Teachers have canes.
Different culture.
Different culture. Right. You know what I mean? So CPS came to the house the next day, and then they talked to my mom, and it was a black lady, by the way, that came to the house from CPS. And she's like, there's nothing going on here. So when she left, I remember we living in the apartment. My mom looked at me and she was like, get the belt. I was like, I know it wasn't even my fault, but little story on CPS. I've dealt with.
You're just standing there with the belt already. You're
like, how dare you bruise, son? You're too weak.
We gotta toughen you up so you don't bruise this bad.
My mom was a great woman. I know some people like think about that as in bad way, but she's a good lady. She's an awesome lady.
Yeah. My late grandmother, she used to have us go pick out the switch. She would call it right. Hey. You had to decide, like, do I want to get the thick one, right, or do I want to get the thin one?
Thin one's not.
I know, right? And so it was always a challenge. Yeah.
I used to have my parents used to use the fly swatter on us.
What is a fly swatter?
Ooh, like we used to have a fly swatter,
like the metal
when we were
part?
kids. Well, no, it was a metal one, but it had the plastic flip thing on the end.
Well, that's kind of nice. It has a bigger surface area, so it doesn't hurt as bad.
Right,
yeah. But my mom used to use that thing on us.
The coat hangers. That's funny.
Ooh, coat hangers.
Grandma was not.
Grandma,
she was from a different day.
Grandma's like putting it over a flame and everything.
I got brands. Yeah,
like shit.
Yeah.
God damn.
I would say the worst was the the thing that like opens and closes the mini blinds. It's like that handle.
That piece of
that fucking thing hurt the most. Out of anything.
Is that like that big long plastic thing?
Because you could get like a good whip in it, and then it like whacks. Fuck that thing. Yeah, no thanks.
Have you guys owned businesses together before? Like, what's your background? You said football, but like, what about business wise?
So for me, I started the first company that I started was back in 2006. So I'm a 16-year entrepreneur myself, and that was a sports video analytics company. So it was basically we took sports video. It got uploaded to the web, and then we would analyze it, break it down, make it searchable. So as a coach, Nsima, you were a soccer player.
Yeah.
So let's say you played
football.
You played.
I know soccer. I'm joking.
You played a game. Let's say you played a game on a Saturday, right? And then that video would get uploaded, and then by the time you woke up the next day, then you and your coaches would be able to go in and look at all the set pieces, pull up all your touches, right? Pull up all those things, and we would do that work for you. And so that was
this was a long time ago. You said about 16 years ago, so you must have been kind of an early adopter.
Right. So the idea of what we did, it's pretty mainstream now, this concept that a lot of people are doing, but we were actually one of the earliest pioneers with that concept of actually using human beings around the world to watch the video. We call them loggers. They would watch the video and they would log the game and add data to it, right? Because at least back then until now, you can't use AI to its full extent to actually automatically tag information in video. You still kind of can't now. There's a lot of elements that happen that you need a human eye to be able to audit what's going on to actually make sense of it. But there are some basic things like a basic touch or a basic shot could be used now and tagged by AI. So that concept of using humans to do it was very revolutionary, and we were one of the first to do that around the world.
You can upload a video, and it would tell you how many times you made contact with the ball and things like that?
So depending upon the sport, so in a soccer match, there are a few different levels of how we would do it, but what's really important for soccer is you want to see all your touches. You want to be able to evaluate all the times you touched the ball. Was it a good touch, a bad touch? How many passes you completed, incompleted? All of those individual things that you're going to use to evaluate yourself as a player. But then also it's looking at the bigger things too, where, all right, let's look at the set pieces. Let's look at shape. Let's look at back four action, like some of those other things that then you're using. But then other sport like volleyball. We're taking volleyball. We're tagging everything by rotation. We're tagging
how many jumps somebody did in a game and stuff like that?
No, we're tagging all the individual actions, right? All the sets, the digs, all of those, right? And then we're also statting it. So not only are you you can search for everything and pull up every time Nsima touched the ball, but you've got all of your statistics too, right? And so we were doing it for all sports. Primarily, ironically, even though I'm a football player, football was not our bread and butter. It was actually soccer. We took off with soccer, and then we were doing most of the Olympic sports.
Wow.
So soccer, volleyball, basketball, ice hockey. And because when you look at those sports in particular, what's the difference between a soccer team and a football team? Well, the football team's got 20 fucking coaches, right? A soccer team's got 2. Right.
Okay, pause. Why does the football team have 20 coaches? Again,
that's just the way we do things.
It is like
This is a whole podcast with our buddy the Thinker. That drives him crazy.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a lot of different
Defensive
like
coordinators,
offensive
offensive
linebacker
coordinators,
coach
right.
and
Special teams, special
teams
quarterback
and all that.
coach.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
probably too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right. Yeah. So as a result, like I didn't focus on football. We focused on these other sports who actually really needed the extra help to be able to make sense of it. So that was that business. And then in the course of that business, I met Ben. And so my brother and I we were co-founders of that first business. And Ben and my brother are friends. And Ben did all the branding for that first company.
Yeah.
And so then he and I have known each other for, 10 years?
At least 10 years.
Yeah, like 10 years.
Yeah.
Where'd you get some of that background in being able to help with branding and stuff like that?
So I actually, I've been in the kind of marketing advertising realm for about 2 decades now. And I've been running my own agency for going on 17 years now. And so, yeah, it's it was a boutique agency. We had about 8 or 9 people, and we just kind of pretty much do everything soup to nuts for clients, from branding to photography to video, storytelling. We try to just create brands that start conversations. I mean, that's kind of, the way that we always positioned it. And, when we met with VidSwap, the company, and we kind of created something, and what was great about Alex is he loved the brand from the very beginning. Like, he got the shirts made, and then every meeting that I ever had with him for the next decade, like, he was always in the shirt, like sporting the brand, and just kind of so he was kind of really passionate about it, so it was really nice. And so and then I worked with him on some other small projects here and there, and then he came to me and he's like, I have some ideas, and he was talking to me about them. And then, when he talked to me about a hostage tape, I was like, yes, because it was really serendipitous how we were on these very similar paths, even though we didn't know it, right? Mm-hmm. From the divorce to, taking more health and wellness stuff about ourselves, self-improvement, all those kinds of things, even interested in Stoicism, all of these kinds of things. And we were sort of on these parallel paths without even knowing it. And so when we really started talking about it, it was just like, yes, and, yes, and, yes, and, and it just kind of kept building and building. And so that's kind of how it happened.
What's the creative process for you like? Because when you came in yesterday, you were like, oh, let's do this, 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 and this. Yeah. And you were you directed me, basically.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that, ideally, if we have time, and everybody involved, we'll try to have some concepts in advance. And I think we even potentially sent you some, to think about how some things could fit together. Right. And then, sometimes when you hit the ground, you're like, okay, this is a reality. This is what we have to work with. This is the time frame we're in. Let's, you try to just, be clear-sighted and seeing like, okay, how can this come together? Okay, I can see that. Let's try to get these shots.
Is it helpful that you're the one actually filming them? And I would imagine you're editing a lot of this stuff as well.
Yeah, for now. I mean, I usually work with my team, and my team definitely, it is helpful when you have someone doing lighting and someone doing audio and someone running the camera, and I can kind of be more, watching all of that and directing from there. Yeah. And sometimes that makes it a little bit easier, but this wasn't, that's not what this was. This was definitely just kind of coming in. I mean, my background is in all of these different skill sets and things that I've been able to
It
pick up
seems
over
like
time.
you have to know a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that has honestly helped make us successful is like, a lot of times this idea of being a jack of all trades, master of none, it's this pejorative, that people like to criticize. But I find exactly the opposite to be true. By having sort of a wide range of things that you understand, it actually helps me manage those teams and those people with empathy, but also with specific direction. And I know what's possible, what's not possible, limitations, challenges that we're going to face. And then, once you have a wide base of things that you can actually start finding novel solutions to specific problems that a lot of time experts can't, because experts have a very deep, narrow body of knowledge, but then all of their knowledge is in that. And so if no one's ever solved that problem, they don't know how to go beyond that.
They can't think any other way.
Whereas if you know this whole range of things, you can well, in this industry over here, they solve it this way. And over here, they did something similar and they solved it this way. And you can kind of bring these things together to find these novel solutions.
People always say, we can't do it that way. You're like, well, I just did.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and
not the
I
way
think
we've
that's,
always
that's
done
one
it.
of the things.
Yeah. Mark, you mentioned that thing about engineers in the nutrition space yesterday. It's funny. We were just having this conversation.
Yeah, we see people outside of their particular, realm of expertise come in and have really great conjecture, I guess you'd say, really great information and great things that kind of go almost not necessarily opposite, but are just different than what has been accepted previously.
And that's what I think too about, even the health and wellness space. And I think how that's sort of pushing more knowledge in a field generally that traditional medicine doesn't really explore. When you're in traditional medicine, you go in and you learn these things, and this is the body of knowledge because that's what the research that they showed you and that's what they taught you. Whereas, things evolve over time, things change, new ideas get presented. And, I heard one time, what do they call a doctor who graduated at the top of their class? Doctor. What do they call a doctor who graduated at the bottom of their class? Doctor. And so it's not all the same. And so, having, people that can come in and look at things differently, but still know it and have a passion about it because, it's what they do. It's who they are. It's part of their DNA. Those are people that I also like to learn from.
Yeah, we had Ted Naiman on our podcast a few years back. It's probably time to get him back on the show again.
Oh,
but
yeah.
He's big on protein leveraging. He's the one that kind of taught some of that to us. And he just has amazing information. And that guy didn't have any nutrition background. He was an engineer. So he's looking at things quite differently.
Right, for sure.
When Patrick McEwen came onto the pod, we were talking about noses a little bit. And he said it in the nicest way possible, but he's like, oh, yeah, over the years, I've been eating this soft food, so I have this small nose. But you look at Nsima's big nose. He was like, that's a nose that can breathe. And what I was wondering from you guys is we've been talking about nasal strips a little bit.
Yep.
So what have you guys found? Because I even noticed, I don't need a nasal strip, but when I put it on, breathing does feel a little bit better. So what have you guys noticed with that?
Yeah. So, what's funny is I've never worn nasal strips before, never done it. And so it was probably a month ago, Ben and I are on a Zoom when we were going over this, and I wasn't bought into a nasal strip.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, dude, I want you to try something. I want you to take your hand and then open up your nostrils like this and then tell me how you feel. And I did it, and I was like, holy shit. You're telling me that this is what it would feel like if I put a nasal strip on? So then I went down
Test
to
that out now, guys. Do that.
Or even do a little pig nose, and that works too.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Yeah. So if you just go like this, and you go, holy crap. You start to realize how much more open
Pinch
your...
the cartilage up a little bit.
So when I did that, I went down to the pharmacy and I bought some nasal strips.
Yeah.
And I started wearing them, the extra strength ones. And now I wear them when I run every morning. And then I wear them when I go to bed. And it makes a huge difference for when I'm wearing the tape and I'm doing that nasal breathing. Yeah. And so, yes, wink, wink, we are coming out with some hostage strips, some nasal strips. We've got some coming out in black very, very soon.
Yeah, that's something I left you a message for. I'm like, you got to work on it because you might as well just cover the whole head.
You were like, you got to do something with the nose, man, or maybe even a full helmet, right?
But people shouldn't skip over that. I know you guys are going to come out with that, but if you can right now, if you're listening, get some nasal strips because that's another way to make this easier for people.
Yeah.
If you're struggling getting breathing, I haven't even thought about for running, but like if you're struggling nasal breathing while running, fucking put a nasal strip on. You know what I mean? That can help open that up and make it easier for you to breathe through your nose. That's a big deal.
I actually, so there's two variations of them. There's the extra strength ones and the regular ones. I tried them both. At least for me, the regular didn't work. The extra strength ones were the ones that worked for me.
The manly nose.
Yeah, I forget the brand. Do you guys remember the name of the brand?
Just Breathe Right.
Breathe Right strip. Yeah,
Right.
and the Breathe Right strip has a little bit of metal in there, and you can kind of contort that around and move that around a little bit. And I found that to be a little bit helpful.
I sometimes found that it was like I'd put it on, but it
was
wouldn't
hit or miss.
stay on.
Yeah, a lot of it was hit or miss, and it would like, because of the metal that's in there, it would like bend off, and then you'd have like you'd have one nostril doing pretty good and not the other one.
Yeah, I find if I don't like kind of clean my nose a little bit, like the skin, like it will just like start coming off. But I don't know, do you have any recommendations for like targeting a good area? Because sometimes I'll put it on and I'll be like, oh, I can see even my nostrils look like they're bigger. But I'm like, fuck, dude, it didn't work. And then sometimes I'll put it higher. And
Like you put it too high or too low?
Yeah,
Right.
and then if I get it just right, it's just like,
I feel like just right here is all you need. Like,
so like what I do is I aim for like that weird like soft spot in between like the bone, I guess. I don't fucking know
What I've learned is you have to try to aim for it to kind of overlap right here where your nose
Like the curve
and
face
the
meet
skin.
up.
So when you put it on, right, the edges of it, they kind of overlap right there in that spot. So I try to aim for that when I do it. And then it always seems to be right. But honestly,
right in that
I think
spot where you'd get a zit. Remember that? You get a zit right there. You ever have one there?
Oh, yeah.
Fucking kills. Or on the lip.
Maybe like once.
Makes you cry.
Dog.
Makes
I
you-
fucking hate it. Yeah, zips are-
Yeah.
that shit looks like you got something. You know?
Well, and it hurts to try to pop it.
yeah, totally.
or inside the nostril. Oh,
I've never had that.
I have.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck, that shit sucks. Terrible.
Means
Yeah,
you're,
what
picking
is
your
that?
you're picking your nose too much then, right?
Probably. Guilty.
Power Project family, hope you're having a good day. Now, we've partnered with 8 Sleep mattresses because it's made a big difference for our recovery and everything that we do. Me personally, I sleep really hot, so I used to wake up in a puddle of sweat. But now, since the mattress changes its temperature through the night, I sleep like a baby. Andrew, how can they learn more?
Yes, you guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject. And when you guys go there, you'll automatically receive $150 off of your order. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
I'm curious for you guys, because you were friends before you started this company, right? Mm-hmm. So how is that being in business with friends? Because there's probably things there, because there's a lot of people that want to do stuff with their friends, but there must be things that you got to think about when you're starting to make money with your homies.
Well, I'll say this. I would say Ben and I weren't necessarily friends per se. We worked together, right? Whereas like my previous business, my brother and I, my older brother and I, we went into business together. So when you work with your brother, I mean, when you work with your immediate family, that's challenging, really challenging, because the amount of fights we got into just because we have egos with each other and we both think we're right was just never ending, right? And so I would say that, I mean, Ben and I, like I said, we worked together. I wouldn't say we were friends. Like him and my brother are really good friends. So that would have been maybe similar. But
Even though your brother's a dick.
Right. Right. Totally. So I just think that we had such a great working relationship.
Yeah.
And we were on the same page with how everything came together.
I
and
saw yesterday you guys talking back and forth, and there was no like, it was like, no, let's do this, and it wasn't really like, it wasn't like please and thank you, just like we're just fucking working together.
Well, and it's like I was wrong most of the time, where Ben was just like, no, dude, we're gonna do this.
No,
But you were letting him do that too.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
you were
I
like,
think-
okay, tell me what you want.
I think it comes from sort of a mutual respect thing and a roles thing. I think every successful partnership, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, any work dynamic, I think people have to have roles. And if they can fulfill those roles and you can trust them to fulfill those roles, and you can hand something off to that person and you don't have to think about it anymore, and they feel the same thing about you, then that's a magic. And I think that's what Alex and I have, right? From a creative, direction perspective, he gives me any leeway I want or need or believe that is important for the company, and from an operations perspective and, kind of building the company up, like it's just complete trust. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know he knows what he's doing, again, it's like, a lot of what we've, success that we've had with Hostage Tape, it's in some ways building a better mousetrap. Right? Like we built a better product, Do you know what I'm saying? But we've also positioned it in a way, and to some people it might look like, oh, it's an overnight success. But really, it's my 2 decades of experience coming into this.
Yeah.
It's his 2 decades of experience coming into this. We each managing our roles and respecting the other, and building this partnership that can then kind of blossom.
And you actually kind of glossed over something earlier that we haven't talked about on the podcast in a while, but years ago, we all got into like Stoicism. We like read Ryan Holiday's books. It started we just started seeing that everywhere. So we really delved deep into that philosophy. Right. So you mentioned that. I mean, you guys were both into that. How do you think, if you can remember, like how did that kind of change the way you guys go about things, whether it's business, relationships, etc., diving into and understanding Stoic philosophy?
Yeah, I think for me, I got into it in my divorce. And so for me, I look back on my divorce and going through that as I appreciate and I'm grateful that I went through it, because it would not have made me the man that I am today. So going through all of those difficult situations, I look at that as it helped me become better, right? And one of the ways was learning some Stoicism in that not everything has to create a reaction. I don't have to have a reaction. I can stay cool, calm, and collected. Not everything has to affect me, right? And taking my ego out of things. Not everything has to be personal, right? Don't have to take it personal, because it's usually not, right? And then learning to have empathy for people and just all of those things that it was a huge period of just learning how I can be better.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, agreed with a bunch of what he just said. I mean, the idea of being strict with yourself but tolerant of others. It helps me be accountable to myself to become my highest version of myself. And be it through finding people to partner with, be it through my own personal challenging myself, pushing myself out of my comfort zones. I mean, we've both run successful businesses in the past, and it would be easy for us to just keep doing that. Stay in that vein, But when we find something that we're passionate about, realizing that, wow, this could also help other people. We could bring something into this world together that maybe we couldn't bring alone, and being able to, find that and build that. But I don't know, I think for me, it was definitely a way to have more compassion, a way to also not get so distracted, right? I mean, one of the most eye-opening things for me is like, you do not have to have an opinion. Right. And it just like, it was such a simple thing. Right. But that was like one of Marcus Aurelius' thing. You do not have to have an opinion about anything. Right. And so there's certain things that they would come up, be it in the news cycles or whatever. And I would be like, why is this happening? It didn't affect my life in any way, shape, or form, but I felt like I had to have a passion. And I started to realize how much energy I was wasting on all of those kind of things. And when I realized I could redirect that energy into things that could help me self-improve, my own conditioning, my own, progress. I think for me, it kind of gave me a tenacity that I don't think I had previously.
Why do you guys think that women don't seem to give a fuck about Stoicism? It seems to resonate really well with men, right?
Women are emotional creatures. They just are. They're like the tide. They come and they go. And as men, we have to learn to be able to handle that and know that, look, that's the way women are, and that's okay. We still love them, but we're the rock. We're the ones that are the even, right? Stay cool and just have to be able to handle that.
And ladies, there are women out there who dig Stoicism. Sure. Because I think one thing that people get wrong about Stoicism is they think that you're not feeling emotions.
Right.
My ex got really mad at me when I was like talking to her about Stoicism. She's like, you already don't talk about your emotions. You're so emotionally blunted. You don't feel anything. You're such a robot. But the thing is, I feel everything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you might be cursing at me and all that shit. I feel it, and it stings. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I'm going to come back at you with that same energy. You know what I mean? I can feel these things and understand them, but it doesn't mean I'm going to come out and say, fucking Alex, fuck you motherfucker. I'm not going to do that shit.
I think, I think one of the best ways that I could describe it is sort of this idea that, yes, you have all the emotions, you have all the feelings, but they don't have to drive the bus.
Exactly.
They're on the bus, but they're not driving the bus. And I think that is the biggest difference, know. And I think women have a different way of processing the ways that they feel, and so it just resonates differently, But honestly, the other side of the coin is also true. I've seen a lot of guys who cannot handle their shit.
You know,
And that's
they
never
lose
good.
It, you know, and it helped me honestly because I used to have a lot of anger issues. You know, and so it helped me to sort of recognize that I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who can't control his anger, because that's never a guy that you see. You're like, oh, I want to be that dude.
No.
You know, you just don't. You know, and you even mentioned it like when you're in the martial arts, or, you know, when you're fighting. It's not the guy who's, you know, coming at you like that. It's the guy who looks serene on his face. You're in trouble. You know,
And it doesn't make your women feel secure. If you've got an overly emotional man, a woman is not going to feel secure. That's what a woman wants. A woman wants security. They want to feel secure in their man. Now, they're going to try to bait them and try to get them to be emotional, right? But, you know, a good man is going to keep his cool, right? And be that rock,
Yeah.
right? So that the women feels good and feels secure.
yeah, anger and stuff like that is an interesting thing, because it very rarely does it work out Yeah. where you've got real mad and you
Right.
got what you wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to work out that great.
You know, an interesting aspect of this is that, like, I see quite a bit of rhetoric online where women do talk about how, like, boys aren't taught to feel and boys aren't allowed to cry. And there are aspects of that where it is true. Like, it is kind of, you don't see often where, like, men talk about the way they feel. Doesn't mean that men don't feel, though.
Right.
Like, women are better at talking about they're better at talking about their feelings.
Right.
They can get into groups of women and they'll talk about everything they feel. It's not that men don't feel. We just tend, sometimes many men don't talk about it often.
Right.
And there could be a bad thing there, where if you're a guy who has all these things and you don't have a group of guys or people that you feel safe enough to talk about aspects of the way you feel, and everything's just here bottled up inside in your head and you're going around life that way, there's no outlet.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So it is somewhat necessary to be able to process and maybe have someone or people where you can be like, dog, this feels like shit, man.
Yeah.
It's you know, like, that is an important thing for men to do, because, you know, like, when men get angry, they're more likely to fall through with suicide. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, we are the ones who will kill ourselves.
Do something violent.
Yeah. And what's also a lot of people I don't think they understand about anger is usually anger is the surface emotion, and there's something under it, be it shame, be it fear, right? And for men, at least in society, it's generally not okay for a man to be afraid, but it is more okay for a man to be angry.
What do you mean?
So I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, there's this idea of being a coward, you know, don't fall off your horse. You know, you stand, you know, you go down with the ship, you know, all of these kinds of things. It's not okay for men generally, I think, in society to feel fear or to show fear, right? Because we're called cowards, we're called wusses, we're called wimps, we're called whatever, right? And so instead, you know, that fear sort of manifests itself outwardly in anger.
Yes.
You know, and because it's more socially acceptable. And so I think anytime, you know, you see a guy who has a lot of anger, it's probably there's this whole bottle of emotion underneath that he hasn't dealt with or doesn't know how to deal with in a healthier way, like you're saying. And so that's kind of, I think, how it comes out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rough spot being in that situation. I think some people will also look at Stoicism and not really understand how it's helpful or practical. They'll look at that and be like, oh, that's nice to like read that passage, but how is that going to apply to me when I'm in a fight with my girlfriend? And it's like, well, the stuff that you hear your girlfriend say or the things that you're thinking are all just an interpretation of her communication to you. And you can start to work on that over time. I'm not saying that you don't have to go through similar experiences, but you could figure out ways. I mean, if things are feeling very difficult, then you have to ask yourself, like, why am I in this predicament in the first place? Like, why is there so much friction? Maybe I should go talk to some of my friends and see what they think. Like, is this normal? Like, we just started dating like 3 weeks ago and we're fighting all the time. And your friend would be like, no, man, you guys should just be fucking right now. Like, what's going on?
That's right.
Yeah. Why are you fighting so much? And you can think about, you know, those things, but having a stoic mindset and just trying to figure out how to keep a balanced mind, I think is literally all anyone's ever actually trying to do. I've kind of observed over a period of time that almost everything that we do seems to have to deal with some sort of stress mitigation. And so sometimes we intentionally give ourselves more stress so we can mitigate stress in other areas of our life, like with like lifting weights. And I think sometimes we also just want to just fucking stick a monkey wrench into something just to make it all fucked up. Make it
Is that
chaotic.
your nickname for it?
Make it
Your monkey
yeah,
wrench?
monkey wrench. Make it all chaotic. And also maybe at some point in your life, maybe you've dealt with a lot of chaotic situations, and that's like a comfortable thing for you, for there to be like a lot of noise around, and so you intentionally fuck things up.
Or you learned it as a child from your parents. Right. I think a lot of the issues and things that we have, patterns we have as adults, we learned it as kids from our parents. Either it's from observation or they just did it to us.
Yeah, maybe you didn't grow up with a calm and quiet home at all.
Yeah. No, I grew up kind of, rough and, single mom and everything. And I didn't really have.
Welcome.
and my mom had a lot of health problems growing up too. So that kind of made me go into this, health and wellness space in a way. I mean, when my mother was my age, she had already had 2 heart surgeries. And, so it was, it was really real for me, especially
Not
when
to get too deep, but like, do you think you were frustrated with her, even though, because maybe you were young and maybe you didn't understand what was wrong?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, there's been a lot of, kind of soul searching and, self-improvement and, therapy stuff to really understand what my childhood was like and why I became the person that I did, because, one of the things I didn't have growing up really was a positive male role model. But what I had an abundance of was a lot of shitty men in my life. You know what I mean? And I was fortunate enough that I didn't pattern myself after them. And instead what I did was I was like, I don't want to be like you, and you're a piece of shit, and you're a piece of, and so I recognized I don't want to be like any of these people. So I had to kind of like find my own way and my own path.
And that's another perspective. You can be grateful that you had all those pieces of shit around.
Exactly.
To say, I don't want to ever be like that guy.
Absolutely. And it really kind of helped me, evolve into who I became.
I'm curious though, even though you did have, like, you saw how shitty they were, like, because for me, like, I saw some, like, my dad, he's a flawed man. He did some shitty stuff. And I knew that I didn't want to repeat a lot of that stuff as an adult. I didn't look at that and say, oh, I've had a single mom, blah, blah. So I'm going to act this way. No, I wanted to go the opposite direction. But over time, did you see any things where you're like, fuck, I'm doing this? And I remember this guy did that same shit. I thought I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, what are some, if you care?
For me, it was the anger.
It was the anger.
Yeah, for sure. Because, a lot of the male role models in my life, they had anger issues and they just, they had zero control over it. And then it took them into either prison or, really bad situations, you know. And while I never made, those sort of catastrophic mistakes, it was definitely this underlying roiling thing, that was there. And it was something that I was never proud of, but I knew it was there, And so, never having sort of a father figure to really help you. I think one of the things that we do with children is we tell them how to take care of their bodies, but we never tell them how to take care of their mind and their emotions, right? We're like, wash behind your ears, brush your teeth, get a shower, wash your hair. But we don't say, well, this is what you do when you're feeling sad. This is what you do when you're feeling disappointed or let down or when things didn't go your way, And I think not having that, and maybe it's gotten better now. I'm not really sure.
Sounds so simple, but it's so powerful.
Exactly, but we don't really teach kids those things. And the reason they're not taught is because their parents didn't teach them those things, right? And so it just becomes this sort of lineage of just, it's kind of heartbreaking if you think about it in that way. And so, one of the things for me that really helped me deal with my anger was actually forgiveness. And when I recognized that forgiveness wasn't for the other person, but it was for me, it was for my healing, then I could sort of let go a lot of that anger and that frustration that really I saw trapped so many of these other guys that I didn't want to be like.
Yeah, being trapped is a great way to word it. I think it's important to talk about these stories that we have behind us, because I get asked a lot of questions. I'm always like, I was really fortunate. I had 2 amazing parents, 2 amazing brothers, and not only amazing parents, but amazing grandparents. Like, I remember learning so much stuff from my grandfather. I remember, seeing him working on cars and having him like literally explaining stuff to me when I was 6 or 7 years old, as if I was 12 or 13, and I remember those times. And I remember pouting. I was always such a bitch. I was always crying about something. And so someone always had to kind of pick up the pieces with me or explain something to me. And they would just say, hey, look, life's not always fair. Shit's not always fair. Like, get out there and go catch a ball with your brothers. Like that's what everybody else is doing. Like go figure it out. And so I did have someone there, and it was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious for both of you with single moms, because like especially in a Mexican family, my dad, my uncles were all like, men don't cry. Like you don't ever share that type of emotion with anybody. So they were like actively teaching us this. Did either of your moms ever say anything like that to where it's like, oh, you don't show any weakness to anybody?
Yeah, you want me to start? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say this, my mom was raising 3 kids in the 80s by herself, and, she was kind of, a struggling single parent, didn't make a lot of money, and it was hard, between working a full-time job and, having her health issues and, trying to, raise 3 kids. I was the oldest. And so what ended up happening was I kind of became the man of the house, for lack of a better term. And that, kind of came with its problems too. My mother always I would say she always made me feel loved. Even though we didn't have anything growing up and, we were dirt poor, she made me feel loved. She made me feel like I could do or be anything that I wanted. And I will say that was probably the greatest gift that she gave me, She gave me a lot of baggage too, you know what I'm saying? But I always felt loved, and I think that for me made me realize how harmful these other men were, not only in her life, but in the lives of their significant others. And I think that was probably part of the catalyst that made me realize why I didn't want to be them. Because if she was, kind of vindictive or mean or cruel or complained a lot and all that kind of stuff, I may have gotten into that victim mentality that allowed me to turn in to those kind of guys.
Right.
And I think maybe because she thought more of me, it allowed me to, in some way, realize that I needed and wanted something different for myself.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. The love thing there is like my mom also, she never made me feel, first off, bad for feeling certain things. But also when I was a kid, like certain things would happen, and she put me in sports since I was 6. She gave me tools, right? So because of that, my tendency as I got older, when I would get mad or angry or whatever, is I would either go run or I would go lift. And the reason why I say that is, Mark, you mentioned like a lot of people do things for stress mitigation. There's quite a few men in my family who have had problems with substance use. I had a relative die because of drugs. And my thing though, I feel like I was lucky because she, without realizing it, she gave me the physical outlet to be able to have something whenever I did feel something or I didn't feel good, I could go sweat it out and think clearly. So that was one of the biggest things. And one of the big things she did too is she never did talk shitty about my father. I find like I was very fortunate because I know other kids who did have single moms or single parents, and even though my dad did talk shit about her for the time he was in my life, like she always talked positively about him. Right. Which always that's why I don't I guess I don't have animosity towards men or men with power or whatever, because like she never did that. And that was a huge thing. One thing though, too, from what you're saying is like all my relatives would always repeat, oh, you're the man of the house, you're the man of the house, you're the man of the house. So I do think there's an aspect of that did play into my adulthood when dealing with women, because when I was in my early 20s, I did not emote much. There was a true aspect of me that wasn't, you could yell at me or whatever, and I'm not going to engage. And that can be a good thing, but that can also be a very infuriating thing that I had to be like, okay, well, I do need to probably start learning.
Squeeze out a tear every now and then.
Yeah, right?
I got you.
And that did play in, but I feel that was a better thing for me to work through than being emotionally volatile. Because as a man, if you're emotionally volatile, that's where that's dangerous. Laying a hands on a woman or doing anything like that as a guy, it's not good for you if you have that issue. Right. You can work through it, but it's not good.
I always think of that movie. I always forget the name of it. but it's Gary Shandling, and he's an alien, and he's just like trying to watch TV. His wife is infuriated with him. She's yelling at him. And he's like, she goes, do you even hear anything I'm saying? He goes, yeah, I can kind of hear you, but you're in the way of the TV. And so she just is so mad. She takes the remote control and she just smashes it on the ground. And he gets up and he like looks at the remote and he's like, oh shit. And then so he goes to like leave. She goes, where are you going now? He's like, I'm going to get more batteries for the remote since I can't find the other ones. They went everywhere.
That would have been me.
He had like no reaction to her, like enraged. It's the best.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Man, what I love about what Ben said is that was something I learned from my parents. So I had two great parents, like yours. I was fortunate. And I think what I learned from them that I'm passing on to my kids is that they always made me, my brother, and my sister believe that we could do anything we want. And I think that's one of the best things that we can give our kids is giving them hope and belief in themselves, because too many kids don't have that, right? And so they did an amazing job of just instilling in us that you can do anything you want to do. You just got to work your butt off and you can go do it.
Yeah.
Right.
But you also maybe want to manage that a bit by, depending on how old the kid is, by saying like, you are maybe not going to be able to be proficient at the thing you're talking about unless you're doing the work for it.
Right. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So, and I tell that to my kids every other day. I say, you can do anything you want to do. You just got to work hard for it. Right. You can do it. Believe it. Absolutely.
Because sometimes when they're really little, they'll talk about wanting to do this and wanting to do that.
Yeah.
But at a certain age, you got to start to explain, well, that guy, he spends a lot of time doing that.
Right.
Don't want to crush anybody's hopes and dreams, but if you're not doing it a lot.
Well, and you try to be an example too, right? Like I know when my kids see me, they see a guy who works a lot. I'm a workaholic. I work all the time. I work probably too much, right? At the business and everything that I've done. And so I try to be an example for them and not just always talk to them.
What do you guys do exercise-wise and food-wise? You mentioned a little bit about running.
Yeah. So what I do, so especially like through the divorce was when I really turned things around, because I got that total dad bod. I gained 35 pounds. I was 210 pounds. I was fat. I was just out of shape. Right. And so what I ended up doing was I do a 20 hour fast, and then I eat for 4 hours. So I eat once a day. And I've been doing that now for good 4 or 5 years. And people think I'm crazy. They cannot believe that I do it. But I eat once a day.
Huh.
And what I then do for supplements is I'll do supplements in the morning and for lunch. So I do a ton of like vitamin D, certainly multivitamin, a whole bunch of that kind of stuff, probiotic, right? That I'm taking at those times. And then I run usually 4 or 5 miles every day. And then I don't.
Fasted?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I do all my workouts fasted. Absolutely.
And by the way, I'm not dissing you. It's just like we've had within the community of fitness, like there's so much dissing of fasting.
Right.
And like, it's just, I just find this interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I tell you this. So when I went from 210 down to what I am now, I'm about 175, and I have about a 9% body fat.
Nice.
And I maintained this physique, 9% body fat, for 4 years.
Have you ever been this lean before?
No. I mean, not since I was like in high school.
Yeah.
Right. But ever since I got into college football, they bulk you up. They're feeding you Domino's pizza every night, just trying to bulk your ass up, right? Because you're burning 6,000 calories a day, right? So, but it was after that, and I wasn't playing, then I couldn't just burn the calories. And so once I learned about fasting, because we didn't eat breakfast anyways, as my family growing up. So I was already used to the idea of like, I don't need to eat 3 meals a day. And personally, I feel like we weren't designed to eat that much anyways. That's just my opinion. And so for me, it works fantastic. And then I cut out sugar entirely.
Ooh.
I don't eat sugar. And
Not fruits. You eat fruits?
No, I don't. I'm not much of a, I'm more of a meat guy. That's
fine.
about it.
Okay.
Right. Now, yes, I'll eat pizza and, burgers and stuff like that too, but I don't eat sugar. Like one of the biggest things that helped me with that is I used to love soda. Oh my God, I could drink so much soda.
Oh wow.
So to kick soda for me, I started drinking Zevia.
Yo,
Zevia.
So we drink some diet soda too.
Yep.
But I started.
You're a juice guy too. I know.
I'm not a juice guy. I was a juice guy for 2 weeks.
That's why he's not natty. He's a juicer.
I was a juice guy for 2 weeks. Okay, I brought it back, and I realized quickly why I shouldn't have brought it back. But to the topic of Zevia, because Andrew is he knows all the different diet sodas, like every single fucking one.
I like the zeros, yeah.
Yeah, but I started noticing that I was like, the diet Sprite that I would love just didn't feel right in here. Like for some reason, I just, my gut was a little bit So I started getting to Zevias. I know you've been drinking Zevias for a long ass time. Oh my God, dog, Zevia is so good.
Dude.
And it doesn't bother my stomach at all. It's like, it's just so good.
It certainly, you go through the transition you always go through. It's like, this tastes like shitty diet soda, right? Of course. But once you get past it and you retrain your taste buds, you realize how amazing Zevia is. Yeah. So what's your favorite flavor?
I like the Mountain Dew. Yeah, I like the Mountain Dew one a lot, and Dr. Peppery one.
Yeah?
The black cherry one's also quite good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through all the fruit flavors for the longest time, and now I get 2 cases of creamy root beer on delivery.
Girl loves the root
every
beer.
month. So all we drink in my house is I've got a fridge full of root beer, the Zevia creamy root beer, and then I'm big into Liquid Death now too.
Okay.
So I drink a ton of those too.
Is your diet? Do you feel like your diet's hard at all?
No, not at all. Yeah, because people will look at it and go, how the fuck do you
And do
eat
you
once a
change
day?
things up a little bit here and there? Like, will you eat twice a day occasionally, or just
The only time I'll eat twice a day is if it's like a holiday or, hey, my buddy wants to have lunch downtown.
So you are gluttonous. Look at that.
Here, I'm gluttonous in the sense that, dude, if you take me out for, like, if we're on a business trip, I'll eat so much food.
You
that
order a couple
You'll
dinners.
look at me and go, where are you fitting all of that food?
That's great.
Right? Like, my old employees were big offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And we would go out, like, during conventions and stuff. And they would be blown away about how much I would eat. They're like, dude, I'm 300 pounds, and I don't know where you're putting all that food. So, but yeah.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly drink water.
Okay.
For me, it was kind of a similar story. I think, at my heaviest, I got about 178, 180, which for a guy at my size, it's too much. You're borderlining, obese at that point. And so I recognized I had to do a change. And so again, getting into that sort of biohacking, health and wellness space, found out about this intermittent fasting thing and low carb thing, and I did that. And the weight just fell off in amazing ways that I, never thought was possible. I was like, this is going to be multi-year kind of thing that I'm going to have to go through.
Yeah.
And honestly, within, I'd say 3 months, I was at like young college weight, that I'd been. I got down to like 145, 148,
What types of foods were you eating?
Mostly it was like you did the carnivore thing. It was just a lot of chickens, and sometimes I would do beef every now and then, steak, things like that. But that was mostly it. Occasionally pork, but I mean it was mostly protein, and then I would have maybe some mandarins or some suma, citrus or something like that. That was kind of like my dessert, spoil thing. And so I did that. And so what's really nice is that's kind of always my go back to, so like right now it's starting to get into the holiday season between Thanksgiving and stuff, going into winter. So I get a little bit more slack with diet and all that. But workout wise, I mostly do kind of body weight stuff, just push-ups, pull-ups, squats, I do kettlebells, I kind of do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I want to get more into like, like the deadlifting and the squatting and things like that. But I've just never like had anybody to kind of show me the ropes on that stuff, which, I guess maybe I do now. But, and so that was kind of always something to where because I heard it's just a full body, multi-compound workout which, for me, it's all about function, at this point, especially as I'm starting to get older.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that, when I'm 60 and 70, that I have the function that I want. Because even after I hit 40, 42, like things just started like was that supposed to, it just didn't start feeling right, you know? And so, once, after I got to that max point, bringing it back, and for me, I find working out is really effective mentally. So it's not just the physical gains and benefits and stuff that I see. Like, you look in the mirror, you're like, okay, I don't want to kill myself today. But it's more like the mental perspective, right? And how like I feel so much better. But it's my outlook. It helps me to have those more positive perceptions and things like that. You know.
Did you guys? I'm curious if you can remember what you felt like before you started doing the habit of fasting. Do you have a different, perception of hunger nowadays than you did in the past? What's that like?
Yeah, totally. I can remember always feeling hungry, certainly. Always being hungry and definitely looking forward to eating. But then when you would eat, you eat lunch, you get kind of groggy and tired after you'd eat your lunch.
Yeah.
And now I feel so much more energy.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing though, because like you're not eating during the day though. So
Right.
when you say you feel so much energy, what do you mean?
Maybe what I should be saying is I feel more alert. That's probably a better word.
Yeah.
Right. I feel more alert, and I don't feel groggy and tired. So I feel more alert. And then when I do eat later, I don't feel so awful when I do eat. And I'm not, certainly when you first start to fast, you have to fight through that initial so many days or weeks of like,
It sucks.
of getting through you feel so fucking hungry that you want to eat, and you see food everywhere around you that you just want to gorge. But then once you get through it, for me, I got through it, it was easy. It was easy to just forget about it, and I could then refocus on work, or I could focus on going and getting a workout in, or I just have more time to be more productive, right? To produce rather than just constantly consuming, right? So
just for argument's sake, what were the meals that you were eating in the middle of the day that you would have, and then you would feel a little groggy afterwards?
anything. Even right now, if I eat lunch right now, no matter what it is,
It'll still slow you down.
I'll still feel,
Okay. I just wanted to bring that up because it was Jay that was saying that like, it could be, it might not be so much the fact that you, that not eating gives you more energy. It's just the fact that what you ate might be the bad, but he's talking about like lots of processed foods.
Now,
and stuff
okay,
like that.
if I had like a protein shake, right? Yeah, I wouldn't feel groggy then because I'm drinking liquid protein at that point. But your standard sandwich, something like that, your normal lunch, I definitely would take a dive.
But on the aspect of the stress hormones, the increase of stress hormones when you are fasted, even Huberman's mentioned this, you are actually more alert.
Yeah.
Because of, if your cortisol is slightly increased, that is, you were more alert, so that makes perfect sense. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think for me, I remember reading, I think it was is like sort of an Eastern kind of idiom, said you should always leave the table a little bit hungry. And it was interesting because, growing up in the South, like food is everything, right? Like I think we invented the all you can eat buffet, right? Like, and I mean that's just what you do, in the South, and like you're not finished until you unbutton your pants, and it's that kind of mentality, and and you can see it in the health of a lot of people in my family, being overweight, obese, all these kinds of things, and so I remember hearing that, and I was like, that's interesting, and for me, my mom was a type 2 diabetic. And when I, got to my heaviest point, I went in, got some blood work done, that kind of stuff. And they said, oh, your A1C, is here. And that's kind of borderline pre-diabetic. And I was like, whoa, you need to really? Like, this is not okay, because I saw the path that my mom was on. And then the sort of cascading health effects that kind of come with that. And so I really started to look into it. And that's another thing where the intermittent fasting has a lot of benefits, right? Is that when I found out, because I didn't know this, I always thought type 2 diabetes was your pancreas stopped working, right? And you needed insulin to substitute. And that's absolutely not what it is. It's insulin resistance. It's basically like your body produces enough insulin, but your body has too much of a tolerance for it. It's like someone who does heroin. When they do that first hit, like, that's all it takes. But then you've got to do more and more and more. And it's the same thing. And so the best way it was described is that every time you put something in your mouth, your body has to initiate a metabolic response. And that metabolic response is very taxing on the body overall, but it's also, dealing with it with insulin. And that's how you get that insulin resistance, is because you're eating, all of these things. And so sure enough, once I started to do the intermittent fasting, I went back, I think it was probably about 6 months later, and they're like, yeah, you're at like a 4 or 5 now, which was well below the borderline where I was. Mm-hmm. And it was just really amazing to see like how that simple change of not being in that, feeding cycle of 16, 18 hours that I was awake, grabbing my first cup of coffee, maybe like a bagel, and then eating a snack before I go to bed, that whole wake cycle. And it just really kind of made me look at food differently, less of like something that I should get pleasure from, and more like this is my sustenance, right? And that it's okay to be a little hungry. That's kind of a superpower in a way. Do you know what I mean? And that it doesn't have to be this horribly negative thing that it is like in the South, right? Like, you're not eating enough, boy. You're too skinny, and all of these other kind of things. And so that's kind of how I processed it.
That makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah, I think fasting is amazing. It can certainly make your diet just so much easier.
Right.
Just simply take a portion of the day and,
saves a ton of money.
Don't eat. I know there's some people that have different practices where they'll just say, okay, well, in the morning, I'm only going to allow for X amount of calories. And so they still have something, and then they eat later on. Or sometimes Nsima and I will do kind of more like liquid calories through like a protein shake and a coffee, and then we'll save our food for later. But just the gist of it is just people eat way too much.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about like the evolution and like what we were built for, we weren't built to have refrigerators, right? With supermarkets full of food, right? We were built to kind of go through these feast and famine. And when you kind of think about it from that perspective, it starts to make sense that, okay, well, the metabolic response is so taxing on the body. When it's not doing the metabolic response, it gives the body so much more time to clean out, all the waste products and the byproducts that kind of build up from just, the day to day.
It's just fun because I think the episode that might be right before this was with our buddy Jay Feldman, and Jay Feldman had a lot of good things to say. He's not a fan of fasting. He would rather have individuals.
I think I saw a part of that. Yeah, that's
it's not out yet.
No, but he's been on with Brad Kearns a bunch.
A bunch, yeah. And by the way, there's a lot of good stuff there that people should take away, because when Mark and I started fasting years ago, we overfasted. Like we, there were times where like, since we were fasting too much, we'd come in and we do a lot of physical activity, like a lot.
Be beat up, tired from it.
Yeah. So if you're doing a lot of physical activity and you're eating once a day and potentially you're not getting in all the calories you need to be able to perform the same shit the next day, you probably need to eat a little bit more the next day or have a few more meals, right? So there, you can overdo it with the fasting.
Absolutely.
But I also disagree with Jay in the sense that I don't think you need to be constantly also eating. There is a happy middle ground, even if you're a performance athlete. Some days you don't need to fast as much. Some days you could eat 3 square meals. It's like but I think fasting gives you the superpower of, like you said, I think, or it was one of you, of not feeling like being hungry is a problem. You said that, like I used to just be angry when I would get hungry.
People are really tethered to their food. They're tethered to the hunger, and also their whole day is set up. I mean, you remember, when either one of you guys had a regular job and you were working all the time, it was always the question when you walked in was like, where are we going to lunch? And somebody would bring in coffee and donuts and whatever. And as soon as you ate some of the donuts, that would be the conversation. Then you had to kind of worry about where you're going to get your food, where you're going to park, how long it's going to take. Because if you work for somebody else, you're only trying to take like an hour or so. And so there's just like all this shit that's involved that you could easily just skip if you simply just have a certain part of your day where you don't eat.
One of the things that I really learned, is that people think that they eat because they're hungry. And one of the number one reasons people eat is because of their feelings. And that, and I think that that's a really kind of, it's an important thing to note, because I think a lot of people don't even realize it. They eat when they're bored. They eat when they're sad. They eat when they're happy. They eat,
That bastard pointed it out.
you know, and so I think that, you know, for me, you know, recognizing that, and it kind of even gets back to the Stoicism thing too a little bit. Like, you know, a little bit of discomfort is not a bad thing. It's not. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know,
I think eating has become an experience too, right? Like it's the experience of being around people, doing things with people. I know that's like being somebody who's worked from home. I've worked from home now for 17 years.
Whoa.
Okay.
Good for you.
I have not worked in an office that long. So what most people got introduced to with the pandemic was just normal for me. Like this was easy, right? So the idea of going out to eat at night, for me, it's my chance to get out. And so we tend in my family, I'll take my family out maybe too much because it's my one chance to get out. So we'll go out to eat because it's my only time I eat.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an experience for me to go out, have some food, but then also just to get out and feel somewhat normal.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Does your wife fast? How's she feel about it?
She does.
She does?
Yeah, she
Oh,
does.
Cool.
Yep.
You don't hear of many like so. I mean, there are a lot of women that fast, but there are a lot of professionals within fitness who talk about like how it's not the safest thing for women to do, or women tend to not tolerate it as well as men do.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, actually.
No, I think too. Like, look, when you live with your partner all the time, you tend to start to emulate, you know, them.
Yeah.
And so I think she just naturally, you know, since we got back together, she just naturally now starts to emulate the habits that I have, which is all right. Now she doesn't eat maybe as much as maybe she used to.
This is funny, dog. I eat like once or twice a day. You know, my girl eats like 6 times a day. That woman is a food monster, but it's funny.
Yeah, and I think Mark brings up a good point. You know, it's like, you know, if you're, it's complicated to make 6 healthy meals a day, right? It's much easier to have 1 or 2. You know what I'm saying? That are healthy, because if you're eating 6, you're like, oh, I'm on the go, but I need a snack, so I'll just eat this granola bar with chocolate chips in it, and you know what I mean, or whatever, because you know you can trick yourself into thinking that that's healthy, even though it's maybe full of sugar. And so I think that also is one of the reasons that it just kind of simplifies the whole process.
It does.
So I think we skipped over something.
Uh-oh.
I think you said you got divorced,
I did.
but then you got remarried to your same wife.
So we are back together.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's kind of a whole key to the whole origin story of Hostage Tape, really, right? Was so we
actually
had
kidnapped her.
Sorry, we kidnapped we held her hostage. No, so the whole experience of not being able to sleep and the snoring and all that, right? She started to sleep in a separate bedroom, and then it just really killed the intimacy, and just everything kind of went from there, right? So we ended up getting a divorce, and then we were separated and divorced for 2-3 years. Wow. And then we ended up coming back together, and it's been now 1.5 years. And so since we've been back together, we're back together, and I'm not snoring. I'm wearing hostage tape every night, and if I don't and I forget, she reminds me. Oh yeah. So
You know what did this before?
she's not being held hostage by bad sleep anymore.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, it was especially for our kids too. It was huge to be able to give them a good, secure, home environment now, and they're doing amazing in school.
Yeah.
I got some great kids. So
It had to feel good, but also really weird, I guess, at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's definitely
Like
weird.
a whirlwind.
It feels like it was a dream for sure. As you literally, in the span of 2-3 years, I went through the hardest time of my life, and it's some of the worst things that any person can go through.
Well, it's good you got someone you can talk to about it.
So
Right? You can talk to her about it. She went through the same thing.
So I can talk to Ben about it. Yeah.
There you go.
But it was awful. Yeah. But also too, I look at it as for every awful, bad situation, it's a chance to learn and get better, right? And have a growth mindset about how can I take all of this and become a better man? And I'm grateful that we went through it, because if I hadn't gone through it, then I wouldn't be the man that I'm proud to be today. I wouldn't be the dad that I'm proud to be today. I wouldn't be the partner that I'm proud to be today. All of those things. So I'm grateful for that.
Did you get her to sign the prenup second time around? I'm just kidding.
I think one of the things, kind of to piggyback on that, is this idea of adversity and actually how much it can actually help us grow. Because I went through a divorce too, and I just, to be honest, it was the hardest thing that I had ever done. But I remember going to I think it was a Zazen meditation, and at the end of the whole meditation, the Roshi at the front, he went around. And basically he said, what do you do with all the pain and suffering in the world, right? And there was this idea, at that time, there was like the war in Syria, and all these kind of horrible things kind of going on in the world. And he's like, what do you do? And, everybody went around and they said what they said. And people were like, well, I try to teach my kids, to, be kind and, generous to other people and those kinds of things. And when it got to me, I don't know, I just kind of had this realization. I was like, what if this is our sandpaper? What if these are the things that help polish us, right? Because how do you learn kindness in a world with no suffering, right? How do you learn compassion, right, in a world with no need, And I think that sort of idea for me, it just made me kind of shift my perspective and my perception on any time these horrible things or these hardships come up in our lives, that they really are huge opportunities. For us to either take a different direction, to learn something new, to get out of our rut, to see our path differently, in our choices and to grow from them. And I think so for me, I always try to look at any of these challenges as, a bit of sandpaper and polish that can help, make me better.
It's easy to feel bad about certain things that you see, but it's also easy to not understand stuff that you see. On my way to Nevada the other day, I saw a deer that got hit by a car and it didn't have a head.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, man. Like, I don't think anybody likes seeing that kind of thing. But then I thought about it a little bit more. I'm like, that deer is going to get like ripped apart by some bear or something, anyway. So it's kind of easy to look at, and you think about like world news and stuff and different wars that are going on. It's like, I don't know about you guys, but I just put my hands up sometimes. I'm like, I don't know anything about that culture. I don't know anything about what they go through. I don't know why this group is fighting with this group or what's going on.
Yeah.
And I can look at it, I can say that's horrible, but I can also know that like I literally know nothing about it.
Yeah.
I don't know who started what. I don't know who got into what or who's trying to overpower who or who's taking advantage of who. So I just try to just fucking just stay right here and kind of.
I don't watch the news.
Keep to myself and not even really watch the news. And if I do see some of it, I don't even bother to try to run it through a filter or anything because I just let it just fucking go.
Especially with the Twitter files. Did you guys see the Twitter files that dropped?
Yes,
I did.
Did you see this?
No, I heard about it.
So fill you in on this one.
Ooh, I can't.
Do you want to explain it?
I mean, I can to the best of my knowledge or whatever. But basically, so Elon bought Twitter. Yeah. There was a lot of people that were trying to block this deal. Turns out a lot of those people were trying to block it is because he was able to uncover a bunch of like cold hard facts about how they manipulated a lot of the shit that we saw during the election. The main one being our president's son's laptop.
Oh yeah,
with all
Biden's
that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So they were actively like banning and blocking and suppressing a lot of people talking about this. Mm-hmm. And there's proof that there's people that worked for Twitter that did this. Mm-hmm. And so they manipulated the election.
So the Biden administration, people from the Democratic Party would contact Twitter and say, hey, can you deal with this? And the people at Twitter would go, okay, you got it. And they would suppress and remove posts. Mm-hmm. And
was anything like that done for people that were conservative or the conservative candidates?
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff.
There is. But if you look at the, again, and like I fucking don't like any of it, okay, any party, but like you can see that like there's like the money involved and how many different times Democratic Party reached out, it like significantly blows the Republican Party out of the water.
Well, because Twitter itself was a very left organization. So what ended up happening was just the way that they hired all their people, it ended up being very left dominated. And so as a result, I think they were opened up to the idea that anytime the Democratic Party reached out, like they would just give them what they want. But I think the point here is that after seeing that, it kind of makes you go, why the hell would I even listen to any media at all? Mm-hmm. When you see that kind of stuff that's happening and like, all right, let's just go find our news on Reddit or like these own pockets on the internet that I know I can go trust and listen to and hear podcasts. Like I'd rather listen to people on podcasts and get news from them, like guys like yourself, what you're saying.
You don't want to get the news from us, motherfucker.
There's a ton of shit and a ton of amazing people that you're talking to.
Yeah.
But you can
I'm
do
gonna
stuff that's
listen
more
to.
relevant to your day. Like
and I think
right.
other countries having nuclear bombs and whether they're going to use them or not. I don't have any clue on what to do about any of that.
Nor control. Right?
Other than just to go to the gym and keep eating meat.
That's why you have to think less.
There
On
you go.
powerproject.live. We
That's
have
right.
our
That's
Plum
right.
Think Less
That's
hoodie
right.
live now on the
Nice.
website, along with our Devil Pussy mug and our other, what else we got? Micro shirt, a lot of stuff.
The Think Less shirt, but also like what I wanted to point out was like the camera does not do that color justice right now.
I
like
was
that,
wearing it earlier,
That
but-
plum color looks so good in person.
Oh, so good.
We just ate some of it.
It's edible also.
While you were fasting.
But actually, a really good show that I do appreciate is Breaking Points. It's on YouTube. There's a conservative, there's a liberal. They're going back and forth about both sides of the topic. So like, it's not like you're going to CNN or you're going to Fox News. You're getting some good insight from two professionals where this is their thing. Those are their political parties, and they can intelligently talk about the views of both things and come to some type of consensus. Breaking Points on YouTube, amazing show. Please check it out.
Yeah, I think for me, like, you know, it's really easy to, you know, have these sort of headlines and, you know, articles and, you know, it's like, you know, one extreme and another extreme. Like I read a statistic the other day and they said that 10% of the users on Twitter create 90% of the tweets. And if you think about that for a second, right? Like if you just think about that for a second, like what would that mean? Well, that would probably mean that 5% of the most liberal that are the most extreme and 5% of the most conservative are the ones dictating the conversation because they're the most active, you know, and then we're all just kind of reacting to it, you know? And so I think that, you know, for me, it's more like, I would rather have more deeper information. Like if you're concerned about Russia, go read a history book about Russia. It'll give you a lot more insight.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
Into
'cause
what's
I'm like,
going on.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I hear like relatives and stuff mention stuff. I'm like, are you a historian of like these countries? Do you have any idea like what's like, do you really know?
Exactly.
I'm listening to you and
Yeah.
it sounds fair, but I'm like, I don't know if you know what you're talking about.
And then sometimes, you know, I go back to the Stoic thing. I'm like, do I have to have an opinion on this? Like Kanye. Like, I mean, you know, I was like,
Ye.
I'm sorry.
Yay.
Yeah. So it's like,
That's awesome. Control yourself.
You were like, no, ye. You're like,
that's that Minnesota Midwest accent. Exactly.
I'm sorry, dog. That was so funny. Have you been at home like, honey, have you heard that Yee likes Hitler? Like,
I'd imagine he probably doesn't, but
oh fuck. But you were saying,
Yeah, but no, I mean, it's sort of that idea like, do I have to have an opinion on this? Like, it's sort of, I see people getting so worked up and it's like, it could be mental illness, it could be racism, it could be all of these things, but you know, how can I sort of, instead of take that energy, put it into my life and my community and the people that I care about's life, you know what I'm saying? To kind of raise that, like what you've kind of done with the gym here and opening it up to the community. Like, I just think that that's such an amazing idea, you know, and a thing that you can offer, you know, and like, that's the kind of stuff I'm like, yeah, that's what I want to invite more of into my life.
Put your energy there.
Yeah, and not, you know, the latest cycle or the latest outrage machine.
dude, no, that's huge. Like, there is an importance of trying to be somewhat aware of what's going on. You know what I mean? Shit. When it comes to voting, there's so many things that I need to understand to make a good vote as a citizen, right? So there is that, but there's a deeper aspect, like where my mom, she has a lot of CNN playing on her phone and she's messaged me certain things. I'm like, why are you letting this stress you out?
Yeah.
Like, this shit it's not gonna, if you just didn't care about this, you'd be feeling so less stressed, right? So there's a tendency where people like, it's like they turn it into their battle and then it makes them, they're not as, I don't know, they're not as.
But these are the most tense times that we've ever had, Nsima.
The best time it's ever been to be alive in the world, dog. As we know that.
I saw the news. It doesn't say that.
Right? No, that's what the news makes you feel. It makes you feel that the world is such a horrible fucking place and everything's going to fucking burn in the next 10 years.
And it actually makes sense if you're trying to control people, right? Because fear is the number one way to control people. And if you keep people afraid, then, about the economy, they're not going to leave their jobs, right? If you keep them afraid about their party, then they're not going to stray or look at a third party. If so it's just thing after thing. And so, and I mean, we even see it like, we're selling like a solution to maybe help some people sleep better. And like when people complain that they haven't even tried it, they're like, you're going to kill people, and it's just this, it's just this huge exaggeration or fear factor that kind of comes in, and they're not even willing to get. There's like, for me, I've always been the kind of person to where I'm like,
I wish I could try that. My nasal passages aren't big enough. Like, it's like right away negative. It's just like you didn't even. Did you even try it?
And for me, it's sort of like if I'm in a rut or something isn't working, I need to change something. It's just that simple, because to do the same thing over and over again isn't going to change anything and allow me to kind of have a different experience.
Andrew, want to take us out of here? You got a question?
Yeah, actually, I did. I wanted to go back to some mouth tape. I remember the first time that I put it on, again, after Ron Penna and after Mark had told me I needed to give it a shot. And I was one of those people where I'm like, I think I'm too stuffed up in the middle of the night. But eventually, I learned that my nose would kind of work its way through it and it'd open up on its own. I remember that first night I woke up at like 2 a.m. and I jumped right out of bed thinking it was just time to wake up. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm fully energized. Like, this is kind of incredible. That's just a side note, because the real thing I wanted to talk about was how mouth taping can actually help with your erections. What is what's going on there? Because we've heard about this many times before, but I don't know if you guys had some more details on it.
I think that has to do with the nitric oxide.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So what most people don't know is that by breathing through your nose, the air passing through there helps your body produce nitric oxide, which I believe has something to do with this guy down here.
Yeah.
Right.
A bunch of dick pills have nitric oxide. Like not nitric. What's that? It's not nitric oxide. There's something
like citrulline or something like that.
Something like that. But a lot of those pills have an ingredient that has to do with that to try to help guys have better erections. But like he was saying, increased nitric oxide production because you're breathing through your nose can absolutely help you.
It's the best bedroom hack you can use.
Also, James Nestor says that our nose is actually filled with erectile tissue, just like
Maybe that's what I was smelling all the time.
That's why I love picking my nose as a kid. Because it's just
there you go.
It's touching my nose.
Nostrils getting all hard all of a sudden. All right. Well, okay. That's all I had. Yeah. Just because, I mean, it's right. Like we, as men, like that's kind of like, we got to make sure that that's working. If that's not working, then fuck everything else. Well, I guess you can't fuck everything else.
Yep.
But like, it's just such a simple, easy thing to do is just tape your mouth shut and all of a sudden you're waking up with ridiculous morning wood.
And your wife or your partner is there next to you because she's not in the other room because she can't fucking stand to be next to you because you snore so loud.
Yeah, there you go.
Real quick before we head out, and it's great that you guys already have this on the website, but I remember I messaged you because I was thinking one day, I'm like, there are some people that drink a lot before they go to sleep and they party, and some people might throw up if they're whatever, you know what I mean? Right. So like, you guys have a disclaimer on your website, but don't get drunk before you go to sleep, please. But if you do, don't tape your mouth shut.
Yeah, no, we do have a disclaimer on the product page for sure. Like, if you're maybe too obese where you really should be wearing a CPAP machine, or if you go to bed and you're really sick, or if you have an allergy reaction, or you're too drunk and you could throw up, the rare chance that it might happen, just be smart. And if you think something might go kind of awry, don't wear it.
Here we go.
All right, Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Sure thing. Make sure you guys stick around for Smelly's tip before we get out of here. And let us know what you guys think about today's conversation. Drop those comments down below. Hit the like button and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed. For everything podcast related, including that dope-ass sweater, the Think Less hoodie, head over to powerproject.live right now. That shit just went on sale. And make sure you guys are following the podcast at MB Power Project on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where you at?
Discord's down below. Let us know what you guys think about this conversation and some hostage tape.
Oh, yeah, links down below. Yeah, for sure. Hostage tape.
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Alex and Ben, where can people find y'all?
You can find us on all of them at Hostage Tape.
There we go.
The smelly tip of the day is just to try some hostage tape. Please give it a go. Throw it on, and I want to encourage you not just to try it for sleep, but I'd love to encourage you to try it for some exercise. Actually, you'll find it pretty challenging, even if you're just doing something like an arm workout or some simple exercises in the gym to keep the mouth shut the entire time. So you're not cheating. Go ahead and stick that tape on there. Can you show us, before we hop off here, can you show us the eye mask as well?
Yeah, so we do have a hostage blindfold as well. Because certainly one of the things that a lot of the sleep experts talk about is being able to reduce the light, right?
Yeah, sometimes my wife is like reading or something like that, and so I like it to be pitch black, so I throw those on. Makes a big difference.
And they're comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Catch you guys later. Bye.